everybody, and welcome to this episode of It's Your Birthday, the only podcast that gets you a gift most weeks, but not the last two. But this week we're giving you an ample amount because it's Game of the Year. So it's almost like you waited a couple weeks and now you get 50 gifts instead of just the one to two that we've been doing. Though the only gifts that matters this week is Final Fantasy 14 for some reason. That's right, 6-year-old game.
Merry Christmas. Yeah,
Merry Christmas to the group because somehow 9 of us got sucked in 2 days. It was like, hey, I think I might try this. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a run. And then that was it.
Yeah.
So,
hey, it's a good game. It has definitely helped the last bit of the year kind of being a little shitty for most people. Things seem to be turning around all right. But hey, like at least for our group, it's something to like. It reminds me of when we all got like bit by Animal Crossing and like that whole thing, and now we just have, like even in our Discord, like we had a Animal Crossing chat, and because we've all kind of fallen off of it, it's turned into the Final Fantasy 14 chat.
Yeah.
So hey,
it's and I think I almost wish this was what we would have picked up immediately after Animal Crossing, because now that life is somewhat returning, it would have done us all a better service, I think, if we would have started this way earlier.
That's right.
But, whenever it catches you, I guess. I was also trying to justify it the other day because I was like, well, hey, at least because I was curious, I was tempted to pick up the WoW expansion because I usually play the first one, or each expansion for like the first month it's out or whatever, and try and treat it just like a new game release or something. But in my mind, I'm like, well, at least I'm not playing WoW. And it's like, even though this is arguably much more
it's got some egregious
gripping.
MMO trappings. That's 100% true about this game.
I will say, to their credit, that one of the craziest things about this game is that there is no in-game item shop. It's all done on a website, which I would have thought it would have been there.
So we're really gonna have a huge heaping of like talking about this game probably next week, but on that note of what you're saying is that the account system of this game is a fucking nightmare.
Oh, it's abysmal.
There's like 3 or 4 different websites, and when you log into one of them to do one thing, it's like, oh no, you need to go to this one. This is the one you need to go to. You want to change your character name, you have to go to this website. Migrate servers, that's this one. It's
to their credit, though, that is kind of how WoW was set up, though, too, because you would do it all on their website. They may have added it later, but initially it was like you would go to their website, and then you would do race change, character change, all that. Now, again, I will say, to their credit here, like if you want to do the race change and gender change, all that, it's like, I think $10 to do like your character completely over or whatever. Whereas like in WoW, it was like, I think 15 for a name change, then it was like 25 for a race change, and then 30 to do something like a swap or something like that. So
and you do you get like a free one too.
Yeah, but that's the only one you get. I found this out retroactively because I picked the character that has bunny ears, thinking, oh, that would be cool, but they don't wear hats or helmets, which is a bummer. So I didn't know that going in. And it was almost half tempted to just message support and be like, hey, dogs, you guys got to be a little more upfront about this. Why don't you slide your boy another little Fantasia so I can turn myself into something that can wear fucking stupid hats?
Yeah.
Since apparently glamming is a big part of this game. But yeah, well, it's also like, because there's like the PlayStation version, there's the PC version, then there's the Steam PC version, and then I believe there's also the Windows version of this that may also coincide with the launcher version, which is the Enix one.
Yeah.
But none of them, everything is cross-platform, but nothing is cross-buy of any sort. So even if you bought the PC one, that doesn't count for the Steam one. And if you played like the trial on Steam, that account doesn't work if you were to buy the Windows version of the game or directly from their website. Those don't count. So you have to start
baffling.
a new. I have to imagine I have at least 5 Square Enix accounts at this point. Now, luckily, this one will be the final one, hopefully, unless they pull some other rigmarole. But yeah, it is. I mean, that's the first testament to. That's the first like trial of the game, is just getting it to work and your account to show up. That's the first dungeon that you face in the game. And then once you've got through that, they give you the luxury of building a character and then potentially giving them money. But yeah, I mean, I will say if anyone is curious about the game, that free trial is very generous. It's like up till level 60, which I think I've played for 4 days now pretty aggressively, and I'm only at 51. So I think it's the whole base game and the first expansion with some limitations. But that is free. And then during the Steam sale, I think it was like $30 for the package and then a free month with that, which was the other competitive side to the Warcraft offering. Was like that was $40 and then $15 for the month. So like
Yeah, you have
where
to
this
get
was
it.
$30 and the month, and this was base and all the expansions. So it's like
Yeah.
pretty generous. Again, I think like their pricing stuff is a lot better. Also, I think their monthly thing is quite a bit cheaper too. I think it's either $10 or $11.99 or $12.99 or something. Which is like one character per server, which you don't. I thought it was weird at first, but you really don't want or need more than one character.
Yeah, because you can do everything as a single character. Literally,
Yeah,
literally
which is probably
everything in
not
the game.
news to most, but
Yeah.
it is. As far as that game goes, it's like you can. Yeah, and again, like having it only be $10 if you don't want to play that like gender or race or whatever anymore.
Dude,
That's
we're talking,
pretty exceptional.
and my fiance just loaded up fucking Final Fantasy on Steam. So there's another
Hey, that's
one.
that's the
Another
first time I think you've said that on podcast.
Oh yeah, that happened over Christmas.
Yeah,
so
congratulations
that was,
to the
thank
boy.
Thank you.
To the
that
boy
was
in
a-
Oman.
It was a harrowing, very nerve-wracking moment in my life. But hey,
I imagine
We made
because
it.
from the photos, you had everybody there. You had a whole audience, and that's
Oh,
got to make it even more stressful. Even if you like everybody, obviously, there's got to be a little bit more stress involved.
well, yeah, because I was like, I have a plan. You always have a plan going into some stuff like that. But I
Into
was
some
like,
something, yeah.
into some something, You always have a plan, but then like
Sure.
the spaghetti starts falling out of your pockets as you're talking, and you're like, "Ugh." So. But thank you. I'm excited about that, and I'm also excited that we've fed another human being that we know to the maw that is Final Fantasy 14. So that is
There we go.
That is a very cool
We're up to
experience.
10 as far as the body count goes. It seems like, so that's good.
Yeah, maybe we can like start our own free company and get housing and do that fun stuff. Hey, sky's the limit.
Dueling dildos will be the next one because Twin Adders is taken, so it'll be dueling dicks, and then there'll be well, I don't know. I have no idea. Are there guilds in this game outside of that?
There
I
is.
assume there
Well,
are,
there's
right?
like free
Yeah.
companies, but like you have the story stuff where you side with like one of the like companies or whatever.
Oh no! I meant like traditional guild like.
Yeah, it's called a free company.
Okay.
F-
and then
FCs.
So what is the chat that we're in that game? That's not a guild. That's something.
No,
else?
it's just like a group of your friends. It's just like a
Okay.
You can just have like a group of friends in a chat, which is cool. That's like a
No,
neat thing.
that's super neat. I didn't know. I figured that's what that was or how it was
Yeah.
represented, but I didn't know specifically because there's 6 years of content to unearth. Still feel a little less overwhelmed than I did playing Final Fantasy or Phantasy Star 2, but a little more so in some areas because this game is so. We can talk about it all next week because if
Yeah.
not, I'm going to talk about this
We'll,
game
we'll
for the
go
next
we'll go
2
on
hours.
forever. So
Yeah, we should have probably said this before all that crap, but this is going to be our Game of the Year episode.
yeah.
Now 9 minutes into this.
Yeah, I had I'll just say real quick, I had like a very bad like medical incident that was not COVID that kept us from recording last week, but I'm good now. Good now. Things are great.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters. And somehow you proposed to a nurse, I guess, while you were in there, and that's what happened. You just met a random one
Yeah, I was like, honestly, just
caregiver.
throw me a bone. Like I can barely breathe here. It would make me feel so much better if you just threw me a bone and married me. And she said, I guess. I got nothing else.
Well, what you
going
did
on.
was while they were giving you CPR, you slipped a ring on, and then the person stood up and was like, "What is this?" And you're like, "You accepted. It's too
Yeah.
late." It was a law of surprise. Too
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, my grandfather passed this down to me. He met my grandmother the same way. Now you're
Yeah.
locked with me forever. Anyway, Where do we want to start?
Yeah.
Because we played a lot of shit. It looks like we both have 5 games that are in our top, and then we're gonna talk about like some I think we have 4 honorable mentions each.
Yeah. And technically speaking, I guess 2 of our picks are the same pick. So 4, I guess, each with one dual purpose.
Yeah. We'll be
And
talking
then,
about that one in tandem.
I guess like 4 honorable mentions. And that's not to say there wasn't more games in this, because I have quite a bit of a list that I've kind of chiseled down to this. And I would like to talk about all of them, but for the sake of not having this episode be 9 hours, I think this is probably the best way we could do it. There's no like categories or anything. It's really just like top 5 and then 5 or 4 or 5 honorable mentions each of stuff that if we didn't have to condense it would have probably ended up as a I don't know what I was going to say.
It would have been a huge list because we did play a lot of stuff.
I played more this year than probably any other as a result of
the circumstances
of things. So
but in general, like I guess before we get started, like 2020, new consoles released. We don't have those, so new console games aren't going to be on this list.
No, that's not entirely true. We didn't play the new console versions of these games, but some of these are on that console and on this, so those count. I guess the caveat being some of these are early access games that have now had their 1.0 release, which chances are, if you're on console, is probably the first time you've seen them. And that also excludes any game that came out in early access this year will not be making the top of the list just because they're not finished. So it's not fair to judge them in that capacity, I don't think.
Yeah, that's why I put one of my honorable mentions as an honorable mention, because I think when they go 1.0, there'll be something else.
Yeah, and I think for that too, it's like it's already worth seeing if you're interested, but bear in mind it isn't anywhere near done. So
yeah,
that is something which we'll definitely bring up which ones those are. But I guess we could. I guess if you want to start at your number 5, and then I'll go to my number 5.
Or should we tackle some honorable mentions real quick? Just get through those.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, we can do that. So, I guess my first honorable mention will be Skater XL, which I've definitely talked about plenty of times already. It is a very interesting take on a skateboarding game. More or less, it is the closest approximation to what skateboarding feels like in real life in a video game. And by that, I mean the idea of just going out to skateboard with no, real objective other than like, I'm going to kickflip this gap, or today I'm going to get the 4 stair down, or, I'm going to 180 the 7-Eleven gap, or whatever the hell it is in your town. It's not without its issues, but they, more than any other game, which some I guess have kind of discredited them for this, but they have embraced the mod community very heavily, and to the point of having mod maps put into the base game. They just added around Christmas a mod browser for all platforms, so now
that's cool.
Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, all that can actually get a hold of the mod stuff. It's not just on PC, which is a big deal, I think, for them. It would be nice for them to add a little bit more mechanics and stuff and kind of tune up some things, because it's still about the exact same state mechanically as it was when it released, which is not to say that it's bad, but it does need some tweaking still.
Yeah, for sure.
But I've personally put around 70 hours in this through early access, and now after its release, it's a very good game to go. I don't really want to play anything that's going to take any of my focus away, and I want to just kind of watch a movie or listen to this thing, but I don't want to just twiddle my thumbs or stick fingers up my ass, so I will...
might as well play something.
I might as well do this, and it is fantastic for that. It's the perfect podcast game, or if there's like an album you want to listen all the way through, it is phenomenal for that. Especially again with like all the maps that have been added and all that. It's probably the most relaxing game I play continually, just because.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great calm one.
Do you think, like real quick, because I know that this
Yeah.
game kind of fed off of the hype around like Skate 4 becoming a thing, and they did announce that that's happening. Do you think that there's still room for a skate game? Like I know this isn't going to be like the triple A version of that, but after playing this, do you feel like you would want to play a game in the skate genre of those?
I'll play any skateboarding game that is made, or extreme sports game if they want to start making SSX again, or Dave Mirra. Well, I guess RP.
I mean,
Dave Mirra's not going to be doing that, but
yeah.
if they want to be making other extreme sports, aggressive inline, all that, I'll play any of them. That said, though, yeah, because this game is really not like there's no objective, there's no story, there's no like there are like loose challenges, but they don't really equate or mean anything. It's just sort of can you do it? And like I said, this is more of a relaxing thing. I would be interested to see if mechanically they adjusted regular skate to be more in line with this as far as the actual control scheme and movement go, because I think this game feels more like I feel honestly more in control of this game than I ever did playing Skate.
Yeah.
Even though this is a much looser setup, but it feels more organic, I guess, than that game did. So I would almost find maybe Skate to be frustrating coming from this, but I don't know because I don't know what they plan on doing. I also heard that Skate may be a mobile game, so it's hard to know
there was
if it's going to be a proper
it.
Skate or not.
Yeah.
I think it'd be in their best interest not to do that, but who knows? So
worse things have happened, and
yeah,
less and more predictably bad things have happened. So
what I hope it's Skate 4 and it's pop figures on tech decks and it's a mobile game.
No, dude, it's the little thumb dudes
route
from Tech Decks, like the little finger mascot.
Yeah.
It's just that.
Did they have a name? Was there a race for the thumb creatures?
You pronounced the B when you said it, so they were thumbs.
That really it?
No, but it sounds probable.
Hold on. Tech Deck.
Tech Deck mascot.
Tech Deck Skater.
Here's little thumbs, dude.
Dudes. This is the search I have. Tech Deck Skater Thumb Dudes. Oh, they're Tech Deck dudes. So they're a race of dudes.
Okay, cool. I'm glad we established that.
And it is not with a Z. So
I'm actually shocked.
I know.
In the extreme era, they did not think of that.
Because the listing I'm looking at on Amazon, because you can still get these, I guess. But they have like, this guy's wearing a beanie. This guy's a cop. This guy's like a tiki torch. The cop has a donut in his hand. So I just assumed they were going to have Ratitude. And they do not.
Unfortunately. Yeah, these are the little guys that we're talking about, just in case you were
wondering. You don't
wondering.
think that guy's last name starts with a Z? Come on.
Should have. Definitely should have.
Oh, that's a remote controlled one. That's an
the
RC
one, yeah, but they did make just little dudes.
Yeah, these are the ones I was looking at. Look at that clown back there. You don't think he's got a Z in his last name?
Oh, he definitely does.
He looks like a shitty duck. Like the way his paint is done, it makes him just look like a really fucking weird duck person.
Yeah.
Terminator president. I guess Jinko Jeans, the character in that maroon outfit there.
Yeah. Game of the year, ladies and gentlemen.
Would a thumb with hands that have a thumb be called thumbs too, or would they call them stuff different? Would they?
It would have to be something different.
It's like my pointer. Here's my dude. Here's my pointer finger. Here's my middle finger. My ring finger. My dude.
My dude.
Anyway, so that's one game.
I guess I'll talk about my one of my honorable mentions. I
also played a bit of this.
Yeah, I've not beaten this game, so there's just there's a caveat there for putting this in the honorable mentions. It's honestly why I put it there. And I'm talking, of course, about Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I've never played an Assassin's Creed game up until this point. and we talked about that when this game came out. I also want to say I got it free for buying computer hardware, so thank you, Micro Center, for that.
I would say too, we could probably put this and Immortal Phoenix Rising both as honorable mentions, kind of
I'll
in
probably
the same
say
spot,
that
because
yeah,
they kind of both hit me the same way, and I honestly think Immortal's a little bit more, but that's obviously that's personal. But
Well, yeah, and I played more of this, admittedly, but I have played a bit of Immortals, and I found a lot of like good things about both games. Like the thing I do like about Valhalla, for better or worse, is like the story doesn't always hit, but what I've seen so far is like pretty good. The characters I like for the most part, but of course, and this was the biggest complaint I had, is that they never go there. Like they never take any kind of risks with the subject matter that they have.
yep, and they never will. They
It's
never
just
fucking will.
it's the
You should
Ubisoft
know
way.
too. This is your first like proper Assassin's Creed game, right? You were
Yeah,
saying?
that I said that. So, like, I'd never played one up until this point. Like, I knew people who liked them. People say like Assassin's Creed like 2 is their favorite, or Syndicate, and like I understand that this game is like the third and what they're like basically calling a revitalization of the series, because they're all like these big open world titles now. Whereas before it was a little bit more tight net. You had some open world stuff, but it was a little bit more of a linear experience in the past, I think.
They were still an open world, but there was more. The focus was more streamlined. I think there wasn't so much like side stuff necessarily. It was mostly like the side stuff would equate more to like collecting things, if I remember right. It's been a while since I played them, but it was more of that, and like the little smaller. It was almost almost all the open world were more or less like a city. And then when they got to the one in Britain, I can't remember which, or London maybe it was, the one where you had two characters, that one started getting a little more this way, and then Odyssey, or I mean Origin especially was where they really, this was the format they started going with.
Yeah, and I can't really speak to it, but I know a big like compliment that people gave to this game was that they're, it's still the Ubisoft formula, but this game does a better job of like letting you discover in some ways, because there's like a whole system built in the game, and I think Odyssey had this, but Odyssey also had just way too much like grindy content. They learned their lesson from that.
Big.
Yeah, it's way too big, too much going on. This game, like, you could spend the first 6 hours in the first like area you're in, but I honestly just kind of got through it to see what was coming next. And like, I don't know, I like what I've seen so far. I still haven't done a lot of the Asgard stuff in the game that you eventually get to. And they do have an entire system in this game that Odyssey had, which I was talking about, which lets you disable like HUD elements and icons on the map, so you just like organically come across things, which I appreciate.
And I think that's I would say that thing is, and I haven't looked if it's in there, but I feel like that's the thing Immortals needs, because it's sort of like, I think that beam your map thing is neat, but they sort of like, it's sort of trivial, because it's like once you see a thing with your eyes, it just shows up on the map anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like it gives you like this pseudo idea that you're exploring when you're not really, because it's like you're just looking for a marker and then you go to it rather than coming upon it or whatever. Mm-hmm. Which I guess you could just not use that system, but that was one thing about that game. Comparatively, I guess that was like a little. Because that one's definitely more in line. And as you said it, and I feel like I said it wasn't going to happen, but yeah, we've had a lot of Breath of the Wild games this year.
Yeah.
And that one especially was more like any of them than any of the other ones, I guess. Like that one feels like it very much was spawned from that. But I think that game didn't necessarily take any of that stuff to heart, like, or they didn't quite know why the Breath of the Wild was so fun compared to other open world games. Because in that one, again, like the stamina thing in that game feels really weird, which it kind of did in Breath of the Wild, but it still made more sense in that game for whatever reason. And then like the map discovery stuff is like I think it's also because like in Breath of the Wild, there's always stuff to kind of find, and it was more rewarding when you found any of it. Whereas this one was like, I don't know, it's like another gym that you gotta do to upgrade your thing, and you gotta find like 8 of them anyway. I don't know.
Yeah,
It was just
I think that compared to Phoenix Immortals Phoenix Rising, Assassin's Creed
Phoenix
Valhalla
Immortals
is less.
Begins Monsters.
It's like less of a collectathon than that game is in a way. Like you still have like the gear that you're looking for on the map, but that game really does, like I think it has more things that you collect than Breath of the Wild for sure. Like you have the Charon coins and all that stuff. And in this game, it feels a little bit more like tighter. One thing, like also compared to Immortals, is that the combat systems I think are kind of similar in both games. Where like
Yeah, I
you
think they're more
find-
fun in Immortals, though. I want to say I think anyway. But
well, that's what I'm getting to is that like Immortals I think starts off very strong with a combat system. This game like really slowly like kind of doles the abilities out to you, and if you're not doing exploration, that's how you get like new abilities and stuff. So there's a chance you may
Yeah.
not even see something in the world and use that ability for a lot of the game.
well, that was the grievance I had with it, is because I was doing all melee stuff, but everything I found was all ranged abilities, and I'm like, well, I'm not using any of these because I'm not spec'd for any of that stuff, nor am I like, I don't know. It's like the more Assassin's Creed has become what it is now, it's like the less emphasis on stealth in any capacity has been. So I've sort of now been trained to not even think about stealthing in somewhere and just going full force into it because I'm gonna have to fight everything anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really my only gripe, is it was like you're specking a thing, but you're not really getting talents for the thing. You may not be getting things for the talents that you're specking into. You're sort of getting stuff for whatever it feels like, which was a little weird.
Yeah, I like both of these games. I'd put them pretty much at the same spot. I do think that Immortals does have a leg up, but I think Assassin's Creed, like one thing about Immortals that like really kills the vibe for me is I think the game is like horribly unfunny, in my opinion. And
yeah, it's not great.
It's like in your face all the time. And Assassin's Creed, it's like, dude, it's like both don't reach great heights. Like, and it's kind of disappointing.
That's Ubisoft, man. I don't know why I think it's just for the sake of trying to please everyone, but they never. I don't know. I feel like they upend their writing staff too much and don't let them actually spread their wings, for lack of a better word, with story stuff, because it feels like they have a good premise and they're like, you've got a great premise. Now let's dial that premise back about 50% and then see if we can kind of leave it there, and then we'll end it maybe another 20% back from that. And you're just like, dude, just go. And that's again why I was like, I give Cyberpunk and The Witcher both credit or at least CD Projekt maybe overall, is like when they're telling a story, it's like you're getting the story they wanted to tell you, whether that's going to upset you or it doesn't upset you. Like it's just they're giving you that story.
Yeah.
Same with actually the little bit of Pathologic I played was the same thing. It's like this world sucks, and you know that it sucks, and it's not gonna like try and inform you in any other capacity that it's a shit show. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's good. It's good storytelling, and I wish Ubisoft would do it, because their worlds are always pretty and
Valhalla
and
looks
mechanically
great,
pretty
man.
enjoyable.
And this game does too. And like, yeah, that's just the big thing. I think those games are like a few good steps away from being brilliant and excellent in every way, but there's always just these stumbles with Ubisoft games. But hey,
And it's almost always stuff that they've like been criticized or learned or done differently before, but decide to either redo the same mistake or do something. I don't know what their design philosophy is there. It's always really weird.
yeah.
But
that was Assassin's Creed and Immortals.
Yeah.
I'll end up beating both of those games next year. I'm sure, when things are slow.
I don't know. I mean, Final Fantasy is supposed to be getting a new expansion too this year, so I mean,
It's true. That's true.
we might never play another game again. No, I need to finish The Witcher. That's the thing. I'm like, I came so close to the end of that game, fucking finally, and then found this game, and then halted all progress. But yeah, so my second runner up would be, or honorable mention, early access. Undermine got its 1.0 release. They've also updated it since then with another I think either 2 massive updates since then. It was a game it's not on the Switch already, I really want it to be. But it's a dungeon crawling roguelike setup, which is primarily what I end up playing anyway, and what most of my list will sort of look like. But yeah, it's interesting because you're not really like necessarily gaining superpowers or whatnot, but you're sort of gaining items that'll kind of make things like, because you're all you have is like your swing attack or you have a throw attack, but it'll be like when you throw, it hits with a lightning bolt, then that lightning bolt will hit everybody. Or it's like whenever you jump, you'll land oil on the ground, and then if you can throw your axe through fire, and then it'll light the ground, so that can do like damage to people or whatever. And then you can run through water if you're on fire or whatever. But the game has a really good, I think, system of like the premise is that you're like an underpaid miner, and so every time you die, it's just somebody else clocking into work. So you're not like the same character continually. It's just the next guy shows up, and you're like trying to explain to him what the job is. And then that bird you have like familiars that will do different things, but they like have a maximum level of 3, but they level up as they go on. And then all the gold that is dropped on the ground, there's like these pilfer things that will come and try and steal it. So you have to kind of focus on getting them away so you can still get like your pay out of it, and then all this other stuff. And it does the good thing of like once you beat a boss, you don't have to go through it again. You can just kind of keep going through, or you can start the next run however far down you made it, as long as you made it to like a checkpoint section. A lot of secrets and stuff too. You have bombs that you can use, and then there'll be a lot of like, there's some items, I think it's like an Indiana Jones hat that'll give you like you'll see hidden doors more often. This is kind of similar to like Binding of Isaac, I guess.
Yeah, I get that vibe a lot.
Yeah, it's which that game didn't really catch me, to be completely honest, but this one definitely did. Like, I spent a lot of time with this one, and I think maybe just because mechanically there's like a little bit more going on, whereas Binding of Isaac was kind of like a little bit more simplistic from the get-go, which I think it expands later, but this one out of the gate was like a little more involved.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's neat. There's also like some other smaller mechanics, like if you find some food, but then you throw like a axe that goes through fire and hits it, it'll cook the food, so then that'll make it worth more points, and just like a bunch of little stuff like that you probably won't notice the first time or a couple times through. Then there's like boots that will block spikes, and ones that let you levitate over areas and all this, and just kind of finding enemy patterns and going through it and all that. But it's super fun. It's got a pretty big tail on it too. There's I think like 6 major bosses and zones, and then there's a like demonic portal that you open after that, and then I think there's a new game plus section after that, and then daily runs and all that stuff that a lot of roguelikes have. But it's a really good one. It's a really good one.
And that did go 1.0 this year?
Yeah, that went 1.0 this year.
Nice.
It's only because there was some other ones on here that I think did. It's competing with a lot of roguelikes for this year, but I think it especially excelled at what it was trying to do, and still does, because they update that game a lot. So
it sounds pretty good. I've seen it on Game Pass, and I've had it installed. I run into so much stuff on Game Pass that I want to play, and that's always on the back burner. So,
dude, speaking of that, because we started Final Fantasy, I was like, well, I'm gonna go ahead and cancel my Game Pass thing, because I end up looking at all the games, but I never end up really playing anything. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll just kind of install it and go, I'll get to this, and then do something else that I've already. I don't know. There's some weird niche thing about them not feeling like I own them, so they don't feel like. I don't know. Like, I feel like they'll disappear at some point. So I'm like, I can't get invested because it might just go away or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I went to cancel it yesterday, and then they're offering like Game Pass Ultimate for 3 months for $1. So I was like, well, never mind. I guess I'm still in.
Got me again, Microsoft.
Well, for $1 for 3 months, whatever. That's nothing. Because it was like, you can get 1 month for $1, and then we're plus 2 bonus months. I'm like, 3 months for a fucking $1 for the highest tier of this crap? What are you doing? How do you guys pay for this? So much?
Microsoft, man, they got endless.
I mean,
money.
I guess they got the cheddar, but
That's right.
It is crazy that they're able to do this consistently. Because there's been like, this is not the first time I've done that either. I think this is like maybe the 5th or 6th time where it's been $1.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, when it came out, it was $1, and that sucked me
Yeah.
in pretty immediately.
Well,
so,
and then the PC one was $5 for 2 years almost.
yeah, dude. Game Pass is actually Game of the Year. I just want to say that, like, before we even get to
Yeah,
Game of
there
the
you
Year,
go.
Game Pass, that's Game of the Year.
Game Pass is Game of the Year. Yep.
They pay
it's a
me
single-
to. I mean, they don't pay. I'm
Well,
not disclosing any
technically-
secrets, but
I guess technically it did get out of PC early access this year because it went from $5 to $10, and I think that was them saying it's not betaed anymore, right? That's
yeah,
their.
yeah. It was. I think that was it.
So I think it is. Guess we're done.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it. I'll
Thanks
see you
for
guys.
all that. Cause
Yeah.
what else can you say? It's 100 games versus any of these one. So that's it.
I guess my next one. I'm surprised this one actually didn't get on your list first. But
Well,
this-
I think I would put this one and RoboQuest together.
Okay.
Because they're very, very similar. But one is not out, one is out. I do love this game though.
Gunfire Reborn. Dude, this game.
Yeah.
This game hit for a minute there when it came out. Like,
It slaps. It still
dude,
slaps.
it's yeah. I mean, I've kind of fallen off of it, to be honest, which is why I kind of threw it in honorable mentions. Also, it's not released just yet. But this
Yeah.
game, like, out of all these like roguelike, like fusion genre, like shooter kind of things that have come out, I think this is my favorite one and maybe the best one.
I would say this one, Ziggurat 2, and RoboQuest are the three probably top tier of this type of game.
Yeah.
I would say this one, just by virtue of being out the longest, is probably the best because it's had the most time to sort of get itself together.
Mm-hmm.
And then under that would be probably Robo, and then under that would be Ziggurat, just because they're, I think, actually in order of release now that I think about it, and that's probably why, because they're all in early access. But
I mean, if you like seeing numbers go up, this is that fucking game. And
if you like Borderlands, but you don't need somebody to make jokes at you for 18 to 20 hours, just do this game.
Do this game, yeah.
Yeah.
It has what I like about it is that, like, there have been runs. I mean, this is the same for any roguelike, but there have been runs in this game. And also, before I say that, I guess maybe due to this game still being balanced constantly, but there were definitely rounds of this game where I felt like a fucking god, and it was like unstoppable.
There was, when I finally beat the game on Nightmare mode, I was using it was like a solo run as the bird, but like I had found a way to buff him to where every time you did a melee attack, it was an arc attack that would hit everybody, and when it would hit, it would refresh your shield completely. So I never could die, and I could do an AoE sweep of everything in front of me, and you could then do that on the final boss, which is like this like pirate ship thing. But you could basically swipe every cannon at once, and then that would put him in his like second phase. It was like almost like 3 hitting the final boss of the game on like the, I think, not highest difficulty, but second to highest difficulty.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know how I just fucking broke this game, but this feels great to be able to do it.
Yeah, like, I like when roguelikes don't get in your way too much, and they let you have a lot of fun with the tools at hand. And I think, like, and I guess due to the nature of this being early access, they still have plenty of room for like balance and like adding things, and the content that they've added so far is pretty good.
I think, but I like
Yeah.
because mechanically they're all really different and pretty interesting. Like they all have their own skills and ults and all that stuff. Another thing I think with this game is the way it doles out upgrades and new items and stuff is like constant, even at like in the level like 80s and 90s or whatever I'm at right now. I'm still finding like weapons and shit I've never seen before, which may be a virtue of them just updating it consistently and not playing it every single day or whatever. But it always is very generous of like, here's a new thing that'll show up this time, here's another thing that'll show up, and all this. And that's like RoboQuest. I think its downfall is like it has a lot of that stuff, but there's still not enough of it, and there's only like 2 bosses or whatever. And Ziggurat, I think, only has like 2 bosses or something also.
And I think this game is made by like maybe 1 or 2 guys. Like, this game like is a very small Chinese developer. The localization in this game is pretty funny at times too. Just to the nature of
Yeah.
like them just not knowing how to translate it very well.
See, now this is the weapon right here. These poison throwing daggers.
Dude,
this is
yeah.
the weapon for this game right here.
Absolutely. Also, I had a lot of luck with the bow and arrow and like the sniper.
Yeah.
With the cat, dude. Like throwing out the orbs and then getting like, you throw out an orb and you get immediate like 200% damage boost. It's insane. Like the builds that you can do in this game. And it's only gonna go up from here. I'm excited to see what they do next year with this game. I think it's got a lot of momentum, and I think if you're into this type of game, it's definitely worth a look.
I think if you're really into roguelikes at all, this is kind of like one to see. Even if you're not like sold on the idea of a first-person shooter version of one, it is. It's kind of criminal to miss it. It's really good, and all the guns feel really good. Like the aiming does. There's like a nice, real good ding whenever you hit somebody in the head, or do a crit shot or whatever. But yeah, that game's fantastic.
Fucking slaps. Absolutely.
It do be slapping.
So tell me about this one. You were pretty hot on this one a couple weeks back.
Yeah,
you seem to really like this game.
I still do. Yeah, it's until Final Fantasy consumed everything. It is. It's a really interesting roguelike. Yeah, Ring of Pain. It's like a, it's like a deck building. You're not building a deck. It is like basically each ring is your deck for that round, I guess, more or less. And then the items that you have with you sort of make up your build. So it's not really a deck builder, but it is all played via cards. But the way that it works is basically you're presented with 2 cards, and you can either attack or equip or take or whatever the case may be. The front 2 cards. One of the front 2 cards, rather, or rotate the ring left or rotate it right. And then there's a bunch of mechanics involved in that of like some enemies will chase you. So it's like if you're rotating away, it'll move up 1 also. There's like explosion things that will like follow you until they're either on you or 1 card away, and then they'll blow up, but those affect everybody. So you're sort of trying to like rotate away from them. So they'll do like AoE damage to the ring. There's some areas that it's like there's 2 basically brick walls at the end of the ring, and so if you don't get to the exit before they close in on you, and like there's no way you'll be able to get around them, so you'll die there. And the name of the game should be taken more literally, I think, too, because the game is really it is perceived as like very RNG heavy, but I think the game really wants you to continually put yourself in situations where you will maybe die to then get the benefit out of it. Like I think the whole idea of the game is like you should put yourself in pain to get out what's worthwhile. And it also has like a kind of weird pseudo story to it. There's like this weird bird god that may or may not care for your well-being. And that I won't really go too much into that to spoil it, but they've done a couple of good updates from it now. Now's one where like every stat card you get, you can pick what stat you want rather than it all being random. But it will like increase 1 to this and 2 down to the other ones or something like that. Like it's a weird risk reward kind of thing, or mitigating whether you want to beef yourself up or not. There's some pretty interesting mechanics and build stuff you can do. Like you can make like a poison kind of character. You can make a stealth character that can kind of pass by enemies without being detected. Or there's some that are like, when you pass by an enemy, it'll automatically freeze them so they can't attack. And then you can rotate back and actually hit them without taking any damage and stuff like that. There's a lot of things, and no item is ever like purely beneficial. It's always like, it'll be like +2 to this, but minus for this. So nothing's ever like, you do get to a point where you can feel like overwhelmingly powerful, but it takes working the system to get that to happen.
Yeah.
As opposed to like it just giving you it outright. But I think it's great. I'm really excited. It's not in early access. It is like out, but it's one of those where it feels like they fully had the game and just intend to update it after the release instead of being like it's early access or whatever, because it's very solid as it is. But they seem to be continuing to update it in the fashion of an early access game. But it's real good, and it's like $14, I think. And the Switch version is great. PC one's really good. Definitely worth seeing.
I actually think this spot I'm gonna talk about a game I actually haven't beat.
Oh Oh,
But yeah,
little switcheroo.
yeah. I
Mid-game
honestly,
switcheroo.
I'm
Okay.
kind of because I was thinking about this today as well, and I don't know if I was going to pull the trigger or not on it, but just this is really only in my honorable mentions because I haven't beaten it. That's basically where I'm at. Like, I just moved it out of my top 5 because I haven't beaten this game. So
Yeah, on air. I mean, live. You
live.
guys saw him, or I saw him move it. You guys didn't, but I can
you didn't.
attest. He
You
did
didn't
move
see
it
this.
live.
So I actually played a lot of Half-Life Alyx, and holy shit, this game, dude! Holy shit, this
cool.
game.
It's very cool.
It's like, I mean, I don't even really like putting the video up because it does it no justice. Like,
No, and that's the problem with everything in VR is like some stuff looks like a shitty PS2 game, but when you actually play it in VR, it's like, wow, this is one of the most fun fucking things I've ever experienced.
dude, like the gravity gloves in this game is the most fun
it's so
I've
cool.
had
Yeah,
in
it's
VR.
and it's such a simple tweak of an idea,
It's just like,
but like it really
flick-
is so compelling.
it's like it, and like
Have you been able to pull a clip into your gun?
yes,
That feels
It's-
good.
dude.
That felt really good. I was just like flinged one into it, and I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, fucking. The game is
also
full
that-
of stuff like that too.
That you know that like bar that you go to? It's not a bar, but there's like a hotel. I think it's actually the bottom of this building that he's in right here. But you go to an area and it's just like there's like a bar back section there. But I just went behind the bar and was like throwing bottles across the room and shooting them, like
Yeah.
just because you
Just
could.
That's the thing. This is like the most stop and smell the roses fucking game that I've played this year
Yeah.
because every corner feels like this stuff you're getting here is like your upgrade materials and like ammo and stuff. But that stuff's like hidden everywhere, so like you do kind of have an incentive to go hunt around, but like even just fucking around with like a pile of boxes and like putting a bucket on your head and acting like a moron, like there's a lot to like.
I will say I think the only thing about this game I wish, which is just it's really more of a limitation of VR than anything else, is I wish it had like feet tracking. Because there's been so many times where I've just wanted to kick a box out of the way, like rather than have to go down and pick it up or whatever. That's like the only thing that really broke my immersion in any way is because like that would be something in real life I'd go, well, I could just scoot this out of the way with my foot. But now you have to like physically go down or whatever. But outside of that, like the amount of interactable stuff, like the way that the feeling the game gives you, like the sound design.
Yeah, putting the items in your wrist, like clicking on a grenade and throwing it, like the game is just full of it is the culmination of every VR game up to this point, and it does every single part of it exceptionally well. You know, the limitations of VR aside, like I haven't played an experience that's like been this immersive, but also I could have probably mainlined it already, but I've done so much of just goofing around in this game that it's like hard to focus in some ways.
Sure. Yeah.
But the story is very strong. I already know how it ends because I fucked myself over by doing that because I thought, oh, I'll never play this game because I'll never have a VR headset. But I have the Quest 2. I've played a lot of it on Quest 2. It's actually pretty damn decent on the Quest 2. Like.
And I played it on the Index when I was going through. I didn't finish it, but when I played the vast majority of it, I played it all through there.
Yeah, so you had the primo experience of it, but even still, with like the limitations of the Quest, it's still a lot of fun. It's still at the core of this game.
Yeah, I imagine the game itself is totally worth playing. It's
the story goes places.
To say there's nothing else like it really is the best way I can describe it, and to say that is even like this run through is not going to even remotely give you even a hint of really what it's actually like to be in it.
Yeah.
Because it is so overwhelming.
I'd say it's a must play if you get a VR headset. Like if this year Valve decides to release like a budget version of the Index or something, this is a definite get for people who are new to VR.
I would say the one thing about it is kind of play this maybe towards the end of your VR library, Because as good as this game is, it's gonna kind of ruin everything else that you play. Because it is. I mean, seriously, like
Yeah.
it is so much of a quality that is like absent from the majority of VR, and I would say maybe even all of VR to an extent. That like if this is not like if you're just getting into VR now, you maybe want to send yourself through the history of VR rather than jump into where VR is currently.
Yeah.
Because I think you'll get a lot more out of VR as a whole than just jumping straight into this. If this is the only thing you intend to play in VR, then yeah, absolutely go for it. But if you tend to experience more that VR has to offer, this is really the pinnacle, and there's kind of nothing else that comes close. So it's like really hard to even almost recommend VR because this is like it. This is the thing. I mean, VR is great. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it, but as it sits. Because Medal of Honor, from what I've heard, is kind of quite a bit of a letdown. And especially, again, compared... It was supposed to be the next, like, here's our next AAA $60 experience. And it just fell flat in that regard in a lot of ways.
This game also, like...
Again,
well, the other thing is, like, accessibility, I think, which is, like, a turnoff for a lot of people. Because, like, looking at this, you're probably like, oh, fuck the motion sickness. But... this game has the most accessibility options for VR that I've seen in a game. Like, you can outright disable like the free movement and just do teleporting around. This is like the pinnacle VR experience, like you're saying, but I think it's like also very good for beginners if you jump right into it. So,
well, see that's what I was gonna say. Is I almost feel like you should play other VR stuff and get acclimated with VR before you do this, because this with free movement is, I think, the way you should play this. Like, you can play it without that, but being able to really guide yourself to every little nook and cranny without having to teleport to it, I think adds a lot to the experience, or at least gives you a better feeling of being immersed in it, I guess. I will say some people too said it was like hard for them to play because it was kind of like a horror game, and I found this game to be so exciting that there was like no element of fear whatsoever. I was just like, I want to just keep going and see what you got.
It's got the same like creepiness of any Half-Life game. Like Half-Life games have always kind of been a little creepy, but not necessarily like scary. I
think I did jump once during this game if I can remember correctly, but other than that, it was like, I don't know. I was just so stoked. I was like, I just want to see all that you guys got. Just fucking keep bringing it on. I don't even care what you throw at me.
So I'll end up beating this very soon. I'm probably about like 60, 70% through it. But like I said, I know how it ends, which I fucked myself over by doing that. But if for fans of Half-Life, it's worth it for what I know of the story. Because I'll just say there's a definite path forward for Half-Life after this. Like, I think that was like a big question a lot of people had. Like, what is this game? Like, are they gonna make this like the new norm for Half-Life? And if they do, I honestly like it. It is the VR experience, and I think that it is enough of a good showing that if they stuck with VR as the next game's format, I think that it's honestly not the worst they could do, but who knows?
I think they did say that that the next one will be both, like VR, non-VR. I could be talking out my ass because Valve is Valve, so they, any of it could be hearsay.
Yeah, one of the most secretive companies in gaming.
Yeah. And even when they're talking, you don't know if it's them talking. So it's like, that could be true or not. I would say that it may be in their best interest to do both, just so everyone can get a taste of it if VR is not their thing. But I guess if it in no way hinders the game, is the game's experience as a whole, I guess, maybe.
Yeah. Definitely recommended. That's that is, if my next honorable mention's like, I think in other ways better than it, but I can't stress enough that if you have VR and an avenue to play that game, you absolutely should. And really the only reason it's not in my top 5 is because I haven't played through it myself. So that's basically it.
Yeah, I can't agree. It's a great game. It's a really good video. If I'd have finished it, I'd have probably put it up there too. But it's fantastic.
So this one's kind of surprising that it's in your honorable mentions. I
it's
know
not
why. I know why, but I'm
Yeah.
surprised we didn't make an exception for it in a way.
No, I
Uh,
mean it's still so Grounded is a phenomenal game. I've spent well over 100 hours in this game. Um and I absolutely love it. And it's sort of the foundation for this YouTube experience anyway. It's sort of how the channel started. It was playing this game. And yeah, it's fantastic. It's a great game. It has its own set of issues. There's not really a story yet. There's kind of tidbits of it. And it's kind of coming together. They recently added the pond, which you're seeing here, which was it's the last big update was the koi fish and pond, and then they did a few smaller tweaks to it, I think, around Christmas. But yeah, the story stuff still isn't in there. They're still kind of fleshing out the yard, I think, as a whole before they start really doing all that stuff. If you like survival crafting building games, this is one of the best ones there is, I think, just because the perspective of the world that you get. And I think with it being Obsidian, where the narrative will end up and the story when it comes to will be totally worth seeing. But even as it sits, if you're just looking for like even if you just did the creative mode, like building in this backyard is super fun. And it has a really weird eeriness to it in sort of a way that Obsidian games kind of can only do. It's like everything's just kind of whacked a little bit. Like it still feels in line with reality, but it's just tweaked a bit to where it's like kind of there's some sickness here, but it's hard to see exactly where it's going to be at. And comedy in the same light of like, even, they're a big fan of dark humor over there. So that's definitely shown, in here to start with. I would say the major criticism of this game would just be the multiplayer implementation is not great. It all works. The problem being that like everybody is tied to whoever started the game. So your world is their world is your world for that play session. Then when you leave, you go back to your own world, but you don't keep anything or take anything with you or whatever.
yeah.
That character on their game stays that character until someone else goes on to it or whatever. So it's a little hard to like. There's not the multiplayer side of it's really weird because it's almost unnecessary because it's like unless someone will basically come into your game to help you build a thing, or the only other purpose would be that like if you're playing this game together at all times, because it's not like, again, only the player that starts the game will go back to that world. So even if the other person wanted to tweak that world that they both been playing in, they can't until the other person shows up.
Yeah.
And starts the game or whatever. So that's like really strange. That stuff's really weird because I ended up picking this game up for Justin and Jack to kind of tool around with. But yeah, it's like not been good for that, I guess, because there's not there. Yeah, you can go in and help someone build, but you get literally nothing out of it, and they get very little as well.
Yeah, having
like
like a
help. So
having like a persistent server, I think, would be good for this game. And
it
think
would
they'll
be,
get there.
and they've talked about doing that. Like that was one of the big things people asked him about because yeah, it is just a very weird implementation of this, and maybe once the story portion of this game comes out and it's like shown that it's like, hey, this is a very narrative driven experience, you would either want to play it all by yourself or just with the same something like that. Maybe that'll all make sense then.
Yeah.
But for as a persistent, because some people compare this game to like Ark and then like Rust and all that, and I'm like, these are just totally different games. Like they're not even close to the same thing, especially Ark. Like maybe Rust, maybe, but there's no PvP. You can't like kill each other. There's not, there's none of that shit. There's not tribes and stuff of people that are hunting you, butt
griefing
naked
each
and all
other
that
and shit.
So
Yeah.
so it's just not those games.
I think it is
but
them
it is cool.
trying to do like their own narrative spin on like a survival game. I think that
Yeah.
that's virtually what it comes down to. I think if you're coming into it for like a sandbox survival experience, it's not quite there. I think it will be,
No.
but if as time comes.
Yeah, and I think that another thing too that I've mentioned to you before definitely is like, it's one of those games where like if you have any interest in the game, I would definitely get into it early, just because seeing the yards sort of come together almost narratively makes sense because you're sort of trapped in this yard, and things in the yard are constantly changing and moving around as they update, which would really happen if someone lived in the house that is, that you're in the backyard of. So all that stuff would change, and with seasons and stuff, they sort of add. They didn't add snow or anything. They want to do weather stuff, but that's like a whole big undertaking for them. But yeah, as the yard kind of develops and as it adjusts itself, it's sort of you're kind of in there with it.
Yeah.
And I think that it is cool for that. It's sort of an unintentional benefit of early access for this game specifically. Like not every game kind of works that way, but this one almost narratively makes sense that it is. And yeah, I think it's definitely worth your time. It's only $30 if you have Game Pass. It's free, and it's totally worth spending some time in for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to jump into it when it starts to kind of have the bow start wrapping around it, but yeah,
Whatever,
we'll see.
Scary cat, dude. You afraid of spiders, dog? Just admit it.
No,
Don't play
not at all, dude. The spiders are so cute in that game. Oh, it does have if you don't like giant spiders, it does have a mode where it makes the spiders like comical or something.
No. It makes them way worse because I have like a mild arachnophobia, and the spiders in the game are like fucking aggressive. You think they're cute, but when they're actually coming after you, it's not even remotely. It's terrifying, especially at night or when they're in a group or whatever. But no, the arachnophobia mode, it basically there's like 5 stages of it, and the first like 2 just reduce its leg count, so it'll be like, oh, it's got 6 instead of 8, or then 2 and then 4, or 4 and then 2, and then the last one is just a floating orb with red eyes that comes after you, and that's not fun either. Like it's none of that stuff is good. Like it's all scary.
Yeah.
Arguably worse because you have no idea it's coming. You just see this like giant ball of eyes that's floating after you and can kill you in like 2 hits, and you have no idea why. So yeah, I would say just help with the fear. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of,
This boy.
and okay, so the only reason I'm not putting this in the top 5 is because technically it came out in 2019. I didn't play it until 2020, but that's when PC
Here's the
got
thing. PC Gamer gave it PC Game of the Year.
That's true.
And so I think it qualifies, but I do understand why you wouldn't.
Yeah. That game is Death Stranding.
I need to finish this though. I need to finish this game. It's definitely in the next like. It's got to be. I mean, I'm going through Witcher. I think I'm gonna either finish this or go through Pathologic. I don't know which one first because I'm kind of burning myself on open worlds, but I
Dude,
really do
honestly,
want to see this game through.
This game, like, okay, so going into it, like, I bought it a whole almost year after the initial reviews of this thing were like extremely mixed, right? Like this came out and it didn't set the world on fire. Like people who were like huge Hideo Kojima fans were like severely disappointed by it. People who like were expecting some like, almost epic narrative like a Metal Gear Solid, like walked away severely disappointed. But honestly, man, this is the antithesis of a game that if you play by its rules and you understand the objective at play and like how you're supposed to play it, like if you stop battling against it, it does turn into a very visceral, cathartic, like nice experience in a way. Like, so the game is like, I wouldn't say the controls are like unwieldy. Like when you get used to balancing and you're basically holding both triggers just to have your hands on the pack.
I never found it to be bad. Yeah, it was like, it was never really too much.
I mean, like, you get to a point, and this is what I mean by, like, playing by its rules, because if you're trying to stack everything on your character, if you're, like, hoarding everything, and you're like, oh, I need to take these items, because I might need them, you're going to, like, slow yourself down. The controls do get a little goofy, but I never really ran into that, because, like, even right here, like, moving through, like, water, right? If you stop in the middle of water, you kind of regain your stamina. And if you scan and you see like red spots in water, you're like, okay, that's too deep. I'm going to fuck myself over. So you really like play by its rules, do these deliveries. it's one of the best podcast games ever made, is a good way to put it. Like, I do recommend the story. It is nonsense at points, like absolute nonsense, but at the same time, I did find the characters at least captivating. Like there's like a really weird like mystery and like technology to this world that's like pretty cool. The main villain of the game doesn't necessarily deliver, and like some of the boss fights are like very poorly implemented. But like
the like 2 I saw were not ideal.
They're not incredible, but they also didn't ruin the experience for me, because you do them, you're done,
Yeah,
and then it's like the next delivery experiences. And I don't know, man. I found a lot of fun in this game, like especially like raiding the like NPC camps of like the people that like take down the people, like the delivery. I forget what they call you in this game. Porter. When they like hunt the porters,
Sam
like steal
Porter
your shit.
Bridges, dog.
Yeah, Sam Porter Bridges. I can't believe I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Nah, man. Like, I don't know. I was not expecting much going into it, and I was very pleased with the experience coming out of it. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, I think the most captivating part for me was just the implementation of the multiplayer stuff. The fact that it is still kind of a multiplayer game, like because you're well, it's that, and I've mentioned it before when we talked about it originally, but like the fact that everyone is Sam Porter Bridges, but you still feel like the only Sam Porter Bridges, and everyone else in this world feels like another employee of this company delivering packages or whatever, is like pretty amazing. Because it's like everyone is the main character while being the side character to everyone else's experience by, you all working for the same company and helping building. It's really crazy. It's like a pseudo Amazon that makes the drivers build the roads themselves that they have to deliver on.
You also get like a social score. Like,
well, this right here that's on there is like, this is your. It's your Lyft review, it's your Lyft rating for being a driver. It's just like, here's your 5-star. This guy was speedy, whatever. But yeah, it's its own thing 100%. It's very unique, and even if you don't like it, I think you should still at least try and see it.
Yeah.
I spent games like this don't get made. And
I spent the first 15 hours of this game going, what in the fuck is this? Like, I spent the first 15 hours consistently asking myself, what the fuck am I playing? And eventually that like stopped, because like I kind of got immersed in it in a way. Saw it like through. I didn't expect to like binge it the way I did, but I beat this game in like under a week. And like, man,
I think I'm curious to know how much, because I put a good portion of time into it, but I'm not totally. I think it may be 14 to 16 hours or something. Like I feel like I've not gotten too far into it, but I did primarily beeline what was getting experienced, and then sort of only side roaded the little bit that they gave me. Yeah, 13 hours. Yeah,
it's got abysmal dialogue at points. The story is like absolute nonsense, but for whatever reason, it was captivating enough to where I was like, all right, I'm gonna keep seeing it through.
It's just so strange, and it's like there's so much money and talent behind it that it's such, like, again, that's why it's games like this just don't get made, because somebody gave him so much money to make the weirdest thing he could come up with. Maybe not the weirdest thing he can come up with, because that's a bit of a stretch for Hideo, because he makes some weird shit. But this was just like, it's so much. It's such a risk of a game to make, because it's like, do you want to be a delivery man for a company, and we're gonna make the combat kind of bad, so you don't really do much of that, and it's just like this weird, super strange thing where the rain hurts you, and
you
the
grow
world
like
is,
you grow a relationship with the BB dude. There's like a whole dude. It's like the BB is like the best character in the game. Like, to be honest.
It's pretty cute. Yeah. What about Conan O'Brien, dog? He not cool?
Yeah, he's pretty cool. He's pretty cool. He does a good job. This game also has like, there were people popping up, and I was like, I know that fucking dude. Where do I know him from? And like, I would pull
Conan
up the
O'Brien,
credits.
Late night TV.
Well, Conan O'Brien, but there's like other
I'm just
game developers. I think there's like some comedians, musicians. This game has quite a bit of like just random like, hey, we invited this guy. Like Jeff Keighley's in it. Like,
Well, I'm sure
very
it was
weird.
basically everyone that was like, it's a new Hideo game, so if he calls you, you're gonna be like, yeah, I want to be in that.
Yeah,
Like,
the
obviously I'm a big fan of
soundtrack,
you.
dude.
Yeah,
The soundtrack to this game's phenomenal, and the moments of the game where like you're just trekking and it kicks in, and you're like just seeing these like nice vistas. It introduced me to a really good band, Low Roar. Like I've listened to a lot of their music now. Like Churches.
Yeah, they got some good albums.
Is on the soundtrack. Yeah, the soundtrack to this game is very solid, and coming off of Metal Gear 5, that's no surprise because that game also had a very good soundtrack. So.
That was actually, this is a side note, but I was like, when I started playing Cyberpunk, I was like, all right, where's the Churches song? Where's it at? I know it's in here. And there's not one.
There's not one.
It
was very surprising to me, too.
Yeah, because I was like, all right, they've been in like 4 games now. They gotta be in this one too, because why wouldn't they be?
Yeah. Dude, I played some of that
this
Mirror's Edge game not too long ago, and the best part is the song Churches wrote for the game.
Oh, the
Mirror's
second
Edge Catalyst? Yeah. It's all right. It's all
I don't know
right.
how they really let that franchise go in the span of 2 games, because that
It's
first one
very-
was really cool. And
They did too much. I'll just say that. They did way too much. And that's coming from the guy who likes Death Stranding. So
yeah, no, I get it. I mean, because
Uh,
I think it's also like, what was it, like Dying Light was fucking awesome as far as free running and fighting goes, and they didn't seem to care about anything that company did and just did whatever they felt like, which they should have taken some notes out of that book, I think.
yeah.
But yeah, this game's
Fantastic.
great. Well, should we take a break and then get into our actual top
Yeah,
list?
absolutely.
All right.
We'll come back. We
Well,
got
guys,
5 each. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, I think honestly, I almost think that this next part will be much shorter than the first part. For whatever reason, I know this is weird, but I almost feel like, I don't know. We'll see. I have an interesting thought here, but anyway, we'll be back in a bit, guys.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen?
Welcome.
You're back.
Hey, it's games this year. Hello, we're doing video games that did us this year.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So-
technically last year, you know.
Oh yeah, it is
tech-
2021.
Yeah.
So last year, games that did us last year that we're doing this year.
Games that we did as well.
Games that we did.
So, yeah, we mentioned some cool honorable mentions. Dude, honestly, though, there were so many good games that came out that we didn't put on the list, but
There was a lot.
go back through our last 19 episodes, because this is
Actually,
episode 20.
You know what? I do have here. I can list the ones that did not make the honorable mention or the list that came out this year quickly.
Yeah,
if you
go
want.
for it.
Just
Go for it,
yeah. So starting from the top here, these are in no order by any means. This is just how I remembered them at a time. We got Gwent, Inertial Drift, Teardown, Going Under, Deep Rock Galactic, Griftlands, Ooblets, Golf with Friends, Skater XL, Animal Crossing, blah 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 blah. A lot of good games that came out, although I think Animal Crossing is on this list.
It's on my
somewhere.
list, for sure.
Yeah,
It's on mine. We'll get to
but
that.
there was a substantial amount. Actually, I could probably pull up Steam very quickly and see what else we got. Yeah, Proteus, Dismantle, Outer Worlds came to Steam finally. Noita, Atomicrops, Phasmophobia, Drake's Hollow, BPM, Ancestors came to PC. That game's a little weird though. I don't know if I'd call that one. Horizon Zero Dawn came to PC. Pop-Up Dungeon, Fall Guys, Destroy All Humans got a remake. Persona 4 hit the PC. Dracula Genesis was very good.
That is a good game, yeah. That was one of my
game's
favorite
great.
roguelikes I played.
Yeah, that one's fantastic. Realm of the Dead Gods, Black Mesa got I think a 1.0.
That's right.
Daemon X Machina, which is a Switch exclusive, got to the PC this year. Tim came out. One Step from Eden, Deer Simulator, Kunai. There's a lot.
Quite a bit. Ghost of Tsushima, which was a little lukewarm on, but still pretty decent game.
Sure.
But yeah,
Grindstone hit the Switch. That was really fun. I've been playing a lot of that lately. That's been really good. Dicey Dungeon also hit the Switch. That's really fun. Mario All-Star Collection. That was another one that came out this year. Paper Mario, I believe, was this year as
Paper
well.
Mario was pretty good.
Yeah, there was a lot. It was a very good year in spite of stuff. It made it seem like we didn't have any games this year by virtue of how much time but it seemed like time finally stood still for a year.
Yeah.
So it seemed like things didn't come out at all because of that, but we actually ended up getting quite a bit of good quality stuff considering everyone having to work around. And those aren't even including the ones we're about to talk about. Those are just in addition to what we will speak on here in a moment. So
yeah, absolutely.
Pretty good shit.
Let's get ahead. Let's go ahead. Let's
get ahead.
Move. Let's get ahead. Yeah. Wow. Let's move full steam ahead to this awesome game about. That's a segue, buddy. That's what they teach you in.
That may
in
be the only
radio
one
school.
we've ever done that made sense.
Really?
Like speaking of getting
one.
head, Diddy Kong Racing is a great game. Yeah, so this one actually sort of works.
Yeah.
I don't know what I know what it is now. You sick freak. Of course it was gonna be Diddy Kong Racing. I mean I know that's your secret number one game of the year, but yeah, in the same vein as Donkey having Super Mario 2 every year or whatever it is, this is yours. It's just Diddy Kong Racing.
Diddy Kong Racing,
perpetuity.
So good. But
Yeah,
talk
good they
to
never
me.
made any more of them. Anyway, let's go to. So good they made a shitty DS port and never made any more. Anyway, let's go. Yeah, so I think number 5 on my list here for games this year that I spent the most time with or felt the most strongly about would be Monster Train. This is a proper roguelike deck building game where you basically pick a starting race and then you pick a secondary race and you get a deck of cards to start with in those two factions. You basically have like a champion hero from your initial race and then secondary heroes and some other stuff from the second set that will there's I believe 6 factions. I think they're working on a 7th one. But they all play with each other well, like any combination. Generally what I do on my playthrough is I randomize both, so it gives me a randomized starting faction and a randomized secondary one, and just kind of go through the run however it's going to present it to me, because it adds like another layer of randomness to it, and it sort of helps you learn everything, or force yourself to learn all the cards rather than just picking one and going with it. But you obviously can do that if you want. There's also 25 plus, I believe, difficulty settings for the game as well, which I've made it to, I think, 3 of them. And there's some people on Reddit group for it that have cleared all of it, which are insane people. But, yeah, it's fantastic. Like, it's always really different. The speed of the game is really great. Everything that you do as far as, like, a lot of smart stuff with the game itself, because when you're fighting something, it gives you all the math from the outset, so you're not having to think about number crunching and all that. You can just quickly go through and go, okay, I see exactly what this is going to do to everything in this row. And it's built in a 3-tier thing, so it's like bottom of the train, middle of the train, top of the train, and then you have your effectively life pool at the top, which stays stagnant through the entire run. There's some things that'll add to it or take away from it or whatever, or add armor to it, some other variants that you can find, but generally speaking, that is your quote-unquote life pool, and so you're sort of trying to make it through the whole thing without dying. But they do a really smart thing where between every fight there is a effectively camping period, I guess, but you can pick a lane. Before you go to either lane, it'll show you what's on every route, so it'll be like, this one has like the ability to take away 2 cards and go to an armor merchant and an upgrade thing, or it'll be like, this one has a camp, or you can pick a card from this faction or from this faction, etc., etc. So you have this option of picking what direction you're going and how you want to manipulate your deck as you go through it, which also adds to the longevity of it, because you can kind of just tweak it however you want. And then I think every 3rd station or every other station, maybe it is, I think it's every third station, but every third station you can upgrade your main hero and upgrade that card to where it does like, there's like, I think there's 4 styles for each card. I could be wrong about this, but there's like, you'll have the option between 2 every time when you start, and it'll be like the same 2 that you start from the beginning. So it'll be like, one is it'll add like 10 lifesteal every time you upgrade it, or this side will be like 10 lifesteal, or not 10 lifesteal, but 10 thorns or something. So it's like, but you could do like the first 2 lifesteal, then the second 2 thorns or whatever. So you can kind of vary it there, and it's all, and that's in addition to picking up items that will do stuff like, add armor to your health based on how much gold you have, or every character in the second row gets X amount of buff or something. Like, they're all pretty random, sort of in the same vein of like those icon or the artifacts that are in Slay the Spire. So it's kind of similar to that. And then the enemies all have variants too. Like, there'll be one where it's like, hey, this type of enemy, once it's on the first row, if it survives the first row, it automatically teleports to the top row. And there's a lot of stuff there. And yeah, it's always really tricky, but it feels really fresh. It's also super snappy and really fast. And you can also increase the speed of play to where everything happens like instantly. So the matches can take, 10 to 20 minutes or so. And yeah, it's phenomenal. And they keep updating and stuff. They've added a new hero for each faction already once. I think they're going to do that again. And I think they're adding another faction entirely. And the game it blew away their own expectations of what they thought it was going to do. So they're continually adding more and more to it because of its success. And yeah, it's just fantastic. It's just super fun. If you like these type of games, this is like probably the best one that's came out in a long time. It really refines that idea.
Yeah, so. It reminds me a lot of Slay the Spire. Like, I've seen that game on Steam, kind of hanging out, and I've always looked at it because I really got into Slay the Spire when that came out. But it seems like a little bit more of an advanced version of that in a way.
It's I don't know if I would say it's more advanced, but it's definitely more it's a faster game because you're not really like the enemies are almost the same. Like, all the bosses are going to be the same all the way through, but there's not a lot of that middle ground stuff. It'll be like, I think it's like 6 stages and then the boss. Or it'll be yeah, I think it's like maybe there's a boss every other lane, and that's when you get your major character upgrade or something like that. But it's not like that warpath of like picking, your destination and all that. So it's just all around faster than that game is. Speaking of though, Slay the Spire really good on Switch. Slay the Spire is also on phones now, and it's like $10 for a phone.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Game,
I heard about that.
Which I haven't tried, but I imagine if it's anything like it is elsewhere, it's probably pretty good.
Yeah, check it out. I think Monster Train will be one I pick up. I think it was on sale, but I missed.
It's on Game Pass right now.
It's on Game Pass. Okay,
that's what I was saying. Yeah, it's on Game Pass. Also, just came to that, so that's a good place to play it. I would say it was a definite pickup for me. Like, honestly, the art style, looking at it, threw me off for a while, and then when it finally got to an overwhelmingly positive rating, I was like, all right, well, what is this game then? Because I thought it was just like another throwaway kind of indie title or whatever. And then, yeah, that was a good 2 weeks of just playing nothing but that game. It's just really good. So I highly recommend it. Hopefully it comes to Switch, because that'd be a really good Switch game, as every 2D game is at home on the Switch. So
yeah. My number 5, honestly, I kind of struggled putting this as low as it is on my list. But I also am kind of struggling to see how I can demonstrate this game with some footage, because this game is so tailored to your experience that it's almost like impossible to demonstrate how this game plays with footage that's not yours.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Animal Crossing New Horizons, no surprise it's on my list at all. No surprise it's on my list, because I spent a very long time playing this game. Admittedly, I fell off of it. I think that might be why it's so low, possibly. Because
that's why it didn't make mine, yeah. Because I spent a good 250 hours with it and then never touched it again. Still have not.
Yeah, So I think part of the problem of the game is that like they wanted to take a philosophy of this game of like, oh, take your time with it. We're gonna release content like slowly over time. But dude, the
It's
pandemic,
early access.
yeah. Well, the pandemic hit, so like,
Yeah.
most of the people like playing this game binged the hell out of it, me included.
Yeah, same.
Did virtually
It
everything in the
became
game.
my job. I mean, when
Yeah.
I didn't have a job, it became I'm waking up at 10, I'm getting my shit going, I'm checking my mail, I'm doing my chores, and then, I'm playing the rest of my games for the week. But yeah, it became my schedule because I didn't have one. And I
Yeah.
think that happened for a lot of people.
And that's why I think people got burnt out on it so quick, because also the offering of content wasn't like as quick as I had hoped, because like compared to New Leaf, which is like arguably the best Animal Crossing game in the series so far, that game, like, you didn't customize your island, but at the same time it felt like there was more substantial things to do in that world. Like, I felt like not only did the animals have like, better dialogue in New Leaf, but like I also kind of felt like there were more options. Like, you can upgrade your store like up 5 levels, I think. In this game you only get like the first, like the
Well, and there's only really the store.
yeah.
Like the other one had like, you had like a town you were dealing with and putting together, and this is kind of like, we eventually got like paintings and stuff for the museum, but Red shows up once every 6 years, so you never really get the chance to actually fill that out. Because for me it was like, once I had my layout done and then filled out the museum and found all the fossils by just natural play, I was like, well, I don't know what else to do here. And that was kind of it. Because I will say I did spend a lot of time, and that's probably what I'll do when I go back to it. If I do, is like just building patterns, because I enjoyed the little pseudo
Like the toolkit
Wacom they give you. Yeah, I enjoyed making art in the game, but other than that, yeah, I couldn't find a reason to keep at it.
I mean,
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's phenomenal. It's like a very good Animal Crossing game, but
Sure.
it does feel like there were some things that didn't carry over that should have eventually made their way here, but like there's no Brewster's Cafe, there's no centralized town that you go to. There's no like gyroids in the game. They don't exist.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
I can't believe the gyroids are gone. That's crazy to me.
It is very crazy. The other thing that's like kind of disappointing is that like, you've played Pocket Camp, right?
Yeah.
So Pocket Camp is what it is. It's a mobile game. It's like, trying to squeeze every dime out of your wallet, to be honest. But in that game, like, I felt like the animals did have a lot more personality. Like, you could place a piece of furniture on your campground and they actually like interacted with it and did things with
that's
them.
a big one.
And like,
because everything here is just aesthetic. There's none of it does anything. Like, it's just looking at it, or maybe a lid opens or something. But there's nothing that like, it doesn't make any of the items worthwhile. It just seems like you collect shit just to collect it.
It feels like a good half step from previous games, but so I expected a little more. But at the same time, this game did for me and other people like, what other games didn't at the time. I mean, it really did come out at the right moment for people. I just don't think that the game was built for that immediate like satisfaction that people were wanting. Because
no.
They lock events behind time. You can't time travel to events, so you can time travel, you can do all that, but like at the end of the day, until they patch the game, you're not going to anything substantial. You're just like, gaming the system in some fun ways. But
well, and it initially had a really weird lockup of like, hey, you can only have one island on your Switch, and it's tied to your Switch. So if you want to play this game as a family, you effectively need to buy a Switch for everybody and get a copy of this game for everybody, because the multiplayer side of this game it's implemented poorly all around, but the actual co-op is like not great either, because it's like only if the person that starts the island is the mayor, so he's the only one that can make any real decisions or do anything.
Yeah, and like going to your friends' islands was like novel at first, but you end
Yeah.
up going and it's like, oh, thanks for the items. There's like no real reason to like hang out.
No, you can't really interact, and like the typing is not great. It's cool that it's there, but it's still like
Yeah.
not ideal. And then like the Dream Suite's a better way to see your friend's island, really, because you can go on your own time and you don't have to you wait the 30 seconds each for you both to link up and then get transferred over, which takes like another minute and a half.
Yeah.
It feels like.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I had to put it on the list simply because one,
Oh, no,
I love Animal Crossing, and it was worth the time I put into it.
Yeah.
There are disappointing aspects of it, but I hope they continue to build upon the foundation of this game, or the next one that they come out with, like, has some more substantial gameplay elements. Like, if, for example, in New Leaf, you can do like mini games and stuff through multiplayer. This game just doesn't have any of that. Like,
Yeah, I saw some people like making their own, which was cool. They had like a roulette wheel thing that then they would pick up buried treasure or whatever on their island or something. But that's all stuff you have to set up yourself and do and all that.
yeah,
And I think the downside is that this is probably the best Animal Crossing game we'll ever sell. So I don't know if we're going up or down in quality from here, because I assume they would want to build on and do more with the next iteration if there is one. I mean, honestly, hopefully they just add more and tweak this one rather than making an entire new game, because the foundation is so strong here. I mean, and generally speaking, you only get one every generation anyway, so it's not like they're going to... Well, generally speaking, I mean, I guess the 3DS era, we just got New Leaf, and then they did Amiibo Festival and some other stuff, and Happy Home Designer, I guess. But as far as New Leaf, it was just New Leaf.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I think another weird downside to it is, by virtue of how many people got a hold of this game that have either never played Animal Crossing or not familiar with Animal Crossing, is like it made this weird market for the game that never existed, like this weird like secondhand store of people buying and selling things, and then like sort of breaking the game by selling turnips on like a stock market on the internet and all this other crazy shit. That also, like I said, kind of just broke the game for me, because it's like after I had like $4 million after even paying off all my house, I'm like, well, even now I really don't have anything to do.
yeah.
Because I'm not like
Yeah.
hunting for money or anything. Like everything
Nook
is paid. I'm
Miles.
just waiting for things.
Nook Miles became pointless because you get everything in the catalog, and it's like, okay, what do I even spend these on anymore?
Yeah, and I do like the Nook Mile thing, like the in-game achievements, pseudo achievement thing. I think was
Yeah.
a really smart thing to do to this game, because it does give you, if you want it, something else to keep doing. But yeah, like I said, the rewards aren't updated enough or varied enough. And the fact that they're tied to games to where they need you to trade with people is a little strange, because it's like, yeah, hey, well, this guy can get a blue. Like, it almost wanted you to seek out other people on the internet to find items and stuff, and then I think it sort of broke itself because it needed that interaction. But then in turn, it had some really good interactions. I don't know. It's really strange. It's such a weird game. It always has been, but this is the weirdest time to get a game like
It's
this
also
and then have everyone come to it the same
It's
way.
the most conflicted I've felt about an Animal Crossing game too, and that's
Yeah, well, it's
the-
never
that's the
been
other
this
side of it.
important.
Yeah,
I think is the thing. It's like never made this much of an impact to this many people. And strangely that it did. Like the fact that so many people got pulled into Animal Crossing
it's wild.
was
man.
really weird.
Yeah.
It was just really, really weird. But yeah, it definitely a game for the history books, considering everything else. Like it is, I don't think there'll ever be an experience like this game for what it is. But yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. So that was my number 5.
Yeah.
And I went ahead and moved this to my number 4 because it was yours as well. We might as well talk about it at the same time. I
Well, you
originally
could say
had
it's
this,
still higher up on your list than mine.
It's higher up on my list, but we'll talk about it. Yeah, this was my number. This is my number 2 game of the year.
Yeah, we tried to keep the list as separate as possible because we liked all these games pretty well together. But
Yeah.
this was a great game. It was really hard to not
Fantastic,
want to put
dude.
it on my own because I just loved it so much and played so much of it.
Yeah, this is Risk of Rain 2. It's
the game I never knew I wanted, having played a lot of the first game, I never even considered a 3D variation of that game. But boy, howdy did they fucking deliver on a concept. Like,
Yeah,
it
man.
is... Fuck, it's fun. And I honestly like it better than the first one. Like, I really love that first game, and it was such a weird niche game that not a lot of people got a hold of. And
It's just
I'm
very
glad.
impressive how it translated. Like, very impressive.
Yeah. I think it's, like I said, I think it's better because it's not as claustrophobic. Like, it still gives you that overwhelming feeling of being overwhelmed by shit, but it's not... You still feel like you have a chance, whereas in the first Risk of Rain, like, once the side of the screen got filled with enemies, you're kind of fucked because you just can't really maneuver anymore. And yeah, the classes in this game are all really fun. Like, you're going to find one you like more than the others, but they're all totally playable and enjoyable to play. I played primarily a lot of this game solo, but once we started playing in a group, that's really fun also.
Yeah.
And you don't feel quite the power fantasy you get playing by yourself, but it's still, I think, a really enjoyable way to go through it and sort of like, you know, talking to each other and figuring out what kind of build each person's going for and what you need and all this stuff is cool.
Yeah, like, hey, if you
And,
find this item, let me have it because I'll be absolutely stupid powerful and
Yeah.
you know,
or
stuff like
and or
that.
my class doesn't make a whole lot of sense without it, etc. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a blast. It's super chaotic, and like the game knows it's chaotic, so it just sort of plays into itself really well. I mean, like literally, time gets to a certain point where the game is just laughing at you more or less. Like it is literally just saying like, "You're fucked, man. Good luck. Keep going."
Yeah, up in the top right, that's the difficulty kind of meter up there. Yeah, it goes from insane.
Like easy, medium, hard, insane, impossible. I think it's like, what are you still doing? And then the next one after that is just ha 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 continually, and as the timer keeps going up. And they finally added like the final boss, which is like hit or miss. I don't love the final boss fight, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, I think it's a good culmination of the game. The final boss, like I think it's
definitely the most mechanical fight in the game. Like it has the most mechanics to it, which would be cool to see them do more stuff like that with this. Because they do continue to update it. They've added, I think, 4 new zones already, or 2 at least, I think, or 3 or at least after the initial 1.0. They've got another. They put a roadmap out for this year because they're going to keep going with it because it also did really well, or better than they expected.
Yeah, I think it's hit like a million concurrent. It hit like 1 million concurrent players or something at one point.
Very cool.
Yeah, something crazy.
They keep adding items too. That's another thing. There's a lot of like secret stuff to uncover, or different weird pathways you can take that you may or may not know how you did one time and may not be able to recreate another or whatever. Which is always kind of fun and kind of freshens up the stuff a bit. And yeah, the difficulty is there if you want it, because it definitely gets pretty tough.
I also like the artifact system they added is really good. So like you can put different modifiers on the game that like give you bonuses or make it harder, but you get like a higher reward for doing that kind of stuff. Like one of the cool ones is that like every chest you can pick the item you want it to be instead of having it random.
Ooh.
So you can, that's a lot of fun to play with.
Sauce. Yeah. Oh shit.
We should definitely unlock that because I played with it with some randoms a few times, but like we should try to unlock that artifact and just play around because going for specific builds is crazy.
Yeah, that's a new thing because actually the last time we played you'd mentioned that system and I didn't know that was in there. But yeah, that's been it's got a shit ton of replayability. Oh, that was the other thing is like all the classes too have, by virtue of doing certain requirements, you'll unlock different variants to the attacks and then like different, not skins necessarily, but like color schemes for the characters and all that other stuff, which that's another thing they could flesh out more if they wanted to.
Exactly. I would love that. Like the one thing about it though is that like, and I like this, but the character, if you look at the character right here versus when we started this gameplay, every item you pick up is represented on your character somehow. It's pretty goofy, but it is awesome. I do like it.
I think it's super. It's a real wacky game with a pretty substantial difficulty curve, as was the first one too. because it also seems very simplistic to start out with, but it gets pretty complex if you want it to be.
Yeah, I'm cutting it there so we don't spoil the final boss too much.
Yeah,
but.
it's a great game, and good on them too. I was gonna say, when the game initially launched, because it came out of nowhere. I just saw it on Steam one day, and I was like, oh my god, I didn't even know they were doing another one of these. But yeah, if you bought it on the first week, they gave you a free copy of it to give to somebody else, which was very cool.
Yeah, that's what got me and my friends into it, like, primarily.
Yeah,
it was just
I gave one to my buddy that gave me the first game because he was like, you have to try this, and I was like, okay. And then that came out, and I was like, here, buddy, take this. Good on you for that first one, because this one's going to be cool too.
Fantastic recommendation.
Very great game.
Easily my number 2 of the year, but figured we'd talk about it at the same time. I don't. Yeah. It's one of those games where I don't want to keep talking about it. I just want people to experience it. That's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, I think it's worth it to see. And I would probably put mine higher, but my top 3 were just so good to me that it's hard. I mean, all 5 of these. I mean, I could probably make a list of 10 that I would say you should definitely play without a doubt, but the top 5 here are all kind of the same. They're like, as far as impactful, each one did a little bit more for me than the other, maybe.
Yeah.
But they're all 100% worth playing.
Yeah, we might as well go on to your next number 3, so we can end this on your number 1. But yeah,
we don't have to, but that's fine. So Hades came out, got its 1.0 release this year, and it's also its Steam release as well as Switch, I believe, was this year also. But Hades is great as far as roguelikes go. I mean, it's one of the first ones to really give you a full, proper narrative experience as you go through it. It also has all the hooks that you want from a good roguelike, like continual random modifiers for each run, and then new game plus style modifiers at the end of once you've already beat the game, reasons to go back through it, and even the story gives you reasons to go through it more once it's already done. It's not quite finished once you finished it. And then you get this weird system of decorating hell a little bit, which was added later, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
There's another system to actually upgrade the weapons, which I didn't find until quite a bit later, not realizing it was there. And by virtue of playing it a lot when it first released, like the first probably 3 updates, and then kind of setting it down for a while, and then coming back to it once it actually got its proper finish. But it's super snappy. All the weapons feel really good and have their own kind of distinctive way that they need to be played. Which also all get tweaked by what kind of gods you sort of align yourself with. There's also a system of unlocks based on, your I want to say romance level, but I guess your like faction rating with each god, more or less, because you kind of give them a drink of alcohol and some other stuff later that'll make them like you a little bit better. And that narratively does some stuff, and then also just has them give you like better items, more or less. Then on top of that, there's a lot of systems in this game, more than you would think, but there's another system that kind of gives you an overall skill set, but there's also like 2 versions of that tree, so you can kind of tweak it more, and you can intertwine each side of those upgrades to your liking. You can kind of reset it, I think, whenever you want to kind of change it all up if you feel like it or feel like you made a mistake. It's hard to say a lot about this game without experiencing the game, which is not never a good way to describe a game, but it just feels so good to play it that me describing that is not going to really give you a great inclination of what that is. But yeah, it's just super responsive. It's very snappy. You never really feel like you got cheated. It's either you just didn't pick the right things going forward, or focus too much on one thing rather than paying attention there. And you don't really lose anything when you die like you would in other games necessarily, because you're in hell and you're intended to not escape hell, so you just die and you go back to hell. Where you already were, so you don't really lose shit in the same way you would in other games. You lose your gold, but that's about it.
And also, but there's like story in losing too. Like there's things that happen, like when you go back, when you lose, like I don't think the game is like built for you to beat it in one run. I know people like there's psychopathic people out there who have beat it in like a single run.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, the game does reward you in some weird way for failing. So there's at least that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's and the art style too is really great. The music's great. All the voice acting is quality. It's just a AAA title at a indie price from a developer that's just really passionate about the stuff they make.
And I think it's like the culmination of all their efforts, like over the years.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I think
it really is.
Yeah, it's the best of Bastion. It's the best of Transistor. It even maybe has
none of us have played Pyre, so we don't know.
Yeah.
But it's in there.
Yeah.
I think actually aesthetically it might be most similar to Pyre, just because of the art style, maybe a little more in line with that game specifically. But yeah, it's it is really their coup de grace, I guess, of everything they've done thus far. And I'm curious to see what they'll do after this, because it puts a pretty high bar for their next project, just because of what this is, or it gives them the opportunity to, I don't know, I'm interested to see what genre they do next, because they've all been kind of a little tweak on the same kind of isometric thing. So I'm interested to see if they do another. Honestly, your boy would love to see him do a card game, because I love card games, and that's one that they could do in this style and do some stuff with. And one that could have some pretty substantial legs if they hit it right. But I don't know. I have no idea what they're gonna do. But I would love to see it.
Whatever they do. Yeah, we'll be playing it. So
yeah, I'll be there with them. Good,
Yeah.
Great company, and one of the few devs that gets continually pat on the back for their interaction
For
with
sure.
themselves and employees and everything else, which is something I think that's worth mentioning. So.
And it wasn't number one on our list, but it does definitely, like, out of every game that came out this year, I think deserves a number one spot. Compared.
Yeah, and the only thing for me personally that kicked this out of my top two was, well, it will get to why, but there was one that was just pulled me back somewhere I didn't know I was going to go, and another one that sort of reinvigorated my feelings for a type of genre that I didn't think could happen. And otherwise, it would be probably the top of my list. It's top to bottom fantastic in any way you slice it. That game is, it's not one to miss, even if you're not a fan of roguelikes. It's really great.
Yeah, very good. Go check it out. It has crossplay with Switch, so if you have a PC and Switch and you own it on one of them, got no reason to not pick it up.
Yeah,
on
that
the
was
other.
another amazing thing they did. I forgot you mentioned that like a week ago, and I realized that. Yeah, it's great. It's a great game.
So, I hate that this is controversial. I hate that I have to open it with that, but
my next one's gonna be, so that's fine.
Yeah.
You know.
The Last of Us Part 2. That's gonna be my number 3 game of the year. I'm actually gonna probably skip to a few hours into the game so we avoid like what happens at the beginning. But overall, this game goes places, and I think that's what I like about it. Like, say what you want about like the direction and the right. Like, I'm not here to debate anybody on like if this was what people were expecting. But I dug the narrative. I like the idea of like loss and learning that, like, you know, it's one of those like revenge bad kind of stories, but at the same time, it's told through like a very human lens, versus the first game, where I think the first game is very good. Joel's a great character, but at the same time, it feels like they are able to go way further in this one, with exploring like Ellie and everybody that she's involved with in the game. You know, the storyline with Abby I actually found to be very compelling. I think that's what the game wants you to do, is that like, and whether or not this hit with everybody, I don't know, but it definitely struck a tone with me, is that like, you're not supposed to like that character at all. And in fact, I would argue that you're really not even supposed to like make the determination that you like her even after playing as Abby. It's kind of up to you. But I like, do you like, because the thing is like, you ultimately play as Abby and you do some like heroic stuff, and you like, you know, are a virtuous character, but you kind of have like you made a shitty decision that impacted a lot more other people. So you're painted as a bad guy. And so it's like, do you think going through her story is redeeming, like, to the decision she made early on in the game, right? And I think it ultimately pays off. Personally, I completely understand the sound arguments around this game about, like, you know, what does it mean to have a character? I can't. I think everybody knows at this point, so I'm not going to talk around it. You can skip ahead if you want.
The only thing I'll say, because I haven't played this game and I don't know anything about it, because I feel like I will probably, once a PS5 shows up sometime,
Okay.
I'll play it then. The only thing the takeaway I've gotten from the stuff I've seen with it, and the only thing that I can surmise from it, is it's sort of like I don't think you're supposed to like either person, really. Like Ellie or her is like, it's sort of the human idea of like, survival is survival, and it's not pretty either way that you slice it, and it's sort of only trying to show you like, these people didn't do stuff because they could do it. It's more because they felt like they had to do it. Yeah. And I haven't played it, so I don't know if any of that is accurate, if I'm just talking out my ass. But again, the takeaway from what I've seen of it,
that's very good. Like, that's a very good, like, astute way of putting it. Like, honestly,
yeah.
Like
to me, it just, from the offset, and that's why people were, because I would only really hear the people's arguments about the game, and I was just like, my thought really was like, well, good on Naughty Dog for one, like, not giving you the story you expected, because why do you want the story you would expect? Like, then why would you play the game if you already know what you think is happening?
Exactly.
Like, that, there's no point to that game then. And it's like, yeah, you could take likable characters all day, but then they don't really mean anything. And I mean, not to say they don't mean anything, but it just again, it seemed like a lot of the complaints were just like, I don't know, like, it's that same argument with like everybody that's like too much of a fan of something. It's like, oh, well, one, if they're already going and attacking the voice actor for something, that's fucking ridiculous. That's already like there's no way
we
in
talked
hell
about this before. Yeah.
That's completely unjustified, because they're reading a script for the job they were given. That has no bearing on the human that did it. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So that's already fucked. And again, it's like, one, that's almost like accommodation to them doing such a good job that you got so pissed off that they made the character so whatever unlikable, or did their job so well that you got this passionate about it. So it's like the weirdest thing to be mad at them about, I guess, or whatever, but that's besides the point, I think, of the whole thing.
Yeah. And that's what I ultimately liked about it, is that it wasn't predictable. Like, I didn't.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that, like, the leaks that came out, like, were half truths. Like, everything that came out before the game released was like all half truth. So
yeah.
People still didn't play the game because they were based off of assumptions of things that they read online that didn't actually happen. Because I went back after beating this game. I went back after beating this game, and I looked at those initial leaks that people were like pissed off about, and it's like, dude, none of this shit happens. Like, there were leaks that were just like my dad works at Naughty Dog level, like, stories.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that's what kind of upsets me a bit, is that, like, I think that there's too many people out there that don't feel like challenging themselves artistically in a way, because I think that it's the
Ubisoft argument. It's the same shit. They just, I mean, not exactly the same, but it's like
they went for it.
They
here.
don't. Exactly, and I'll take that over the same cut and dry shit every time.
Exactly,
like, it's Death Stranding again. It's like, it's fucking weird, but you had your idea and you went through the idea. Same with, like, I haven't got to play it yet, but I picked it up, was like Bugsnax. That game seems fucking super weird, and it's just, they had their idea and they go, this is what we're making.
Yeah.
And they went for it. And I think the same thing could be said about Cyberpunk 2, which is, going to be another controversial thing, which we'll get into in a second. But same idea is like they knew the narrative thing they wanted to do and they did that thing. And like I have to commend that over the same shit over and over again. And that's getting back to this one is like the only thing I really know about this game is that Joel gets killed, right? That's like the big thing.
That's the big thing.
We're up in arms about, but it's like, do you really want to play 4 more games of this where you're just Joel doing this Joel shit? You're going to get tired of him.
The other thing is that like the character development doesn't end at his death. And that's what I really wanted to say if we get into spoilers is that like you still have characterized moments of like flashbacks of like recollection of like moments with Joel. Like you still have that through the game. And like it's almost like losing a loved one, and you hear that phrase like, "Oh, they'll always be with you,
gone but not forgotten."
Right? Exactly. Like they're with you all the time, and you kind of get that in this game because that like tragedy at the beginning of the game sticks with you, and the moments where like in a flashback they come back and it like deals with like the in-between story of what happened with Ellie and Joel before the events of the second game. And you get to that and all that stuff is really well written and really well acted. And I think it's a big shame that a lot of the audience that was so up in arms about this game didn't even give it a time of day. And I think that's ultimately that's like there were so many memes of like screenshots of like the review bombings on Metacritic, and it was just like, I haven't played this game, 0. It's like, why even talk about it?
It's the same thing that you still see with Fallout 76, and that game has gotten its own new set of problems, which I have plenty of grievances with that game, which I've mentioned numerous times, but like every time you talk to somebody about it, it's like, well, I've never played it. I just know it's shit. And even still, you go on the forums, and if a bad game comes out, and they're like, well, it's still not 76. And you're like, you don't even fucking know. Like, it's not like... It's great that you want to pull your meme out, because that's all anybody is doing anymore. You just got to make memes. That's all that matters anymore is memeing.
Yeah.
And that's how you communicate. But it's still just like this thing of like, none of what you're doing is constructive in any capacity. And it's like... And it's so unnecessary because the people making the game are going to look at that and just throw it away because they go, well, this doesn't help me at all. It's like when the people at No Man's Sky, when they were putting that game together, basically what they did is he created a program to filter all of the backlash for the game into what is constructive, who actually played this, and who did this. And it's like, that's so much work to have to do to find what problem is that you can make this thing you did better.
Exactly.
Not that they're trying to do this with this, because this is very specifically the story they were trying to tell, so this is different. But in the idea of, just because, I mean, one, everybody's been at home so much, there's been so much negative criticism all over the internet, like there always is, but more so now than ever, I guess. But it's that thing of like, yeah, Sean Murray literally had to just make a program of filtering feedback to figure out what is even the actual issue, so and what do people like and dislike, so we can fix this thing. So I guess at the end of the day, just saying this is worse than this or this doesn't do a goddamn thing. Like it doesn't help. It just takes up space. It doesn't make you look cooler or like better or whatever. The only other person that thinks it makes you look cooler is the other dickhead that upvoted the thing because he was going to say it, but you said it first. And it's like,
yeah,
it's dumb shit. Like, just save it. Like, the actual criticisms will get back. So
that's not to say that if you've played this game and you really didn't enjoy what you've played, I'm not the kind of guy. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to tell you, oh, you have to play it for 10 hours before it gets. I'm not that kind of guy.
Neither of us are going to say that about any game. Like, if you enjoyed the game for what it is, I'm happy that you did. Like, and if you didn't, same thing. Like, I get it.
I just think that this game suffered dramatically from backlash that was unfounded in a lot of ways, misguided in a lot of ways, but also influenced people that may have otherwise liked the game had they actually played it.
If someone got shot in the kidney and lived, another person is coming up and saying, I would live too if I got shot in the kidney, so I don't need to get shot in the kidney. And it's like, no, neither of you need to get shot, but this guy knows what that's like, and you have no idea. And like that's the this thing here. It's like, yeah, I guess I mean I guess it's a little different because you I'm trying to argue that you should play it before you have an opinion, but no, I guess I still feel right, whatever. I feel like I started with a good analogy and then broke my own analogy for no reason. But anyway, all I care about is that you've spent the time with it to then give a fair criticism. It's just when you out of the gate, say something is bad or don't like or whatever, having not experienced any part of it, is frustrating. I think Kingdom Hearts fucking sucks, but I played the first 2 games, and that's why I think they suck. It doesn't have anything to do with anything else. I just think
and I know,
don't enjoy them.
And Kingdom Hearts is one of my favorite series, and I know Kelly hates it, but I don't hate Kelly for hating it. That's fine.
Yeah, and I don't hate you for thinking it's a good game. I'm just gonna rip on you all the time, but that's
fine.
not a big deal.
It's totally fine. Yeah, not a big deal. And dude, we haven't even talked about the gameplay of this fucking game. Like, we haven't even talked about that.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, because I don't. Again, I have not. Really played
2
it,
seconds.
So I don't know.
2 seconds. It's the first game. They made improvements. I like the crafting. I think that Abby plays a lot more like a run and gun character. Has cooler, like heavier weapons. There's like some literal Resident Evil style like boss fights in her story.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 that I can think of. But yeah, the when the game flips to you playing as Abby, there are significant gameplay changes that are made, which makes that run through it feel a lot more tailored and a lot more unique. So it's not like you're just using the same abilities and everything that Ellie would, because Abby's fucking jacked and she could do a billion things that Ellie can't because Ellie's a tiny girl.
Well, she seemed like a mercenary of some kind. I don't know anything. Again, I don't know anything about it, but she seems like some kind of merc character.
They explore that. They explore like why she is the way she is and the implications
or like
of the first
army
game and
someone or something. I don't know.
Basically a militia. It's kind of what it ends up being.
All right. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay.
I'll end it there. Last of Us 2. If you liked the first game, if you want to see how it turns out, I think that I don't think they did it a disservice. I think it was actually a very well written, very methodical game. Just my opinion, and you can hate that opinion all you want, I guess. But at the same time, I do commend companies for sticking to their guns and, going there, making choices, and not necessarily worrying about repercussions because, like we talked about with Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft games, it's like they've had a lot of opportunities to cross lines and like make things uncomfortable, but they toe a line in a way.
Make things uncomfortable, but also make things interesting and compelling, and they just don't do it. Like they like I said a million times before, but they start the race with like one of the super interesting premise, and then just don't care anymore. It's so frustrating because it gives you almost no reason to do the game anymore, especially in their franchises where the games themselves are almost a cut copy of the last version of that game they made. Like, it's not even like the story should be the only thing that changes to propel you through what they've done previously, and they just don't. It's just, it doesn't make sense that they don't.
Yeah.
It's super strange, but yeah.
That is The Last of Us. That's my number 3. So,
very cool.
Let's get into it. I don't know how it's just funny because we've talked so much about this game.
Yeah, we have. So Cyberpunk 2077 was my second game of this year. And I think if it was more polished, it would probably be my first one. Yeah. I'm going to say right out of the gate, I'll probably get into some spoiler stuff as I talk about this. So,
and I do want to say real quick, the only reason I omitted it from like any honorable mentions or my top 5 is because I knew you would put it on your list and I didn't want to go too redundant, but I would say this wouldn't necessarily make my top 5, but it is like a very good honorable mention. This game has a fat ass asterisk on it for me.
Sure.
But I understand. So yeah, let's move on.
So yeah, that being said, this game I have fully completed. I've done 100% of the achievements. It's actually the first game I've ever done that for, which is weird. In 30 years of playing games, for some reason, this is the first one I ever felt compelled to do that with. But I've done that. I've seen all of the endings. I've done all that stuff. So just as a, I guess, blanket statement for going forward, I have seen the vast majority of content in this game, with the exception of a few things I know I have missed that I'll probably see through my second iteration of this game once some patches hit. That being said, yeah, I have not had a game hit me so narratively, like with such an interesting narrative, in such a long time. Like, it's weird because I guess I'll say, starting off, it's hard to know where to begin here, but I guess I think it's weird because the criticisms this game has gotten are things that either are weird because The Witcher 3 was praised for all the stuff that game has done, and it's really strange because this game is almost that game in a different universe, with it being a first-person shooter instead. Now, I don't necessarily mean that like the scale of the size of the world is the same, or there's an amount of content and all that stuff, but I mean, like, you know, for instance, like, a lot of people criticize like the skill tree and stuff, but it's like really similar in The Witcher. I would say almost even less so in that game, because it almost seems like not much of the skills in that game really make a difference. Like, you don't seem to, like, nothing is really changing your playstyle in that game, really, more or less. It doesn't feel that way anyway. And you literally, you know, you only have like the two weapons that are both swords, so you really have like a combination of a fight,
Yeah.
and you can sort of throw a spell out every now and again. And you're doing that for 200 plus hours. You know, there is some, you know, you can throw bombs, or you can, you know, add some skill. Like, I don't dislike that game. It's going to sound like I do, but I definitely don't, because I immediately finished this game and went 80 hours into that game, having almost finished it. But just because I wanted to see, because a lot of people obviously compare the two, so I was like wanting to see what that was. And yeah, and it's like the horse in that game, Roach, doesn't really drive all that great. The cars in this game are not great, really. They're better. They're a little better because of the sense of speed, and you kind of have more control over them, sort of. But they're, you know, they're hit or miss. But this game offers you, like, you know, 5 or 6 street races. That game has, like, I think maybe 9. I think it's actually only 2 sets of 3. Or 2 sets of 4 maybe, so maybe it's like 8 races, whatever. But so there's like not that much there either. So like there's not like, you know, you're not going into the only thing that's really the like open world experience part of that game is you can just play cards with everybody. But there's nothing like that in this game. But
You
it
do have the
isn't
brawls
really,
in The Witcher 3 as well, like going around fist fighting. That's
oh
another,
yeah, you can fist fight in this game too.
yeah,
so there's
yeah.
more fist fighting in that game.
It's got the similarity
There's
there too. Yeah,
some there, which I don't think the fist fighting in either game are great. I'll definitely say it's better in The Witcher than it is here, for sure.
Yes.
And you can fully cheese the fist fighting in this game, because once I got the double jump, anytime they were about to attack me, I just double jumped above their head and then punched them to death, because they were pretty miserable. I will say the fist fighting in this game was pretty rough.
yeah.
But yeah, so it's just like a weird. It's weird because, and again, the crafting in this game is not great, but you can do it yourself, which is a huge improvement over The Witcher, having to go somewhere to do all that and whatever. And the fast traveling in this game is definitely more generous and all that. So like, mechanically speaking, they're not that different, which is like really strange to me because, well, I would say on the baseline mechanics, they're not that different, but the actual gameplay in this is like much more engaging, I think. Like, I mean, the hacking thing is really fun. You can stealth around. You can go in really loud if you want. The samurai sword feels like super good, like fighting people with a katana, even though it's like not the most in-depth combat. Like, it does feel very much like you're sprinting at the speed of light and just cutting people in half, which is like really fun to do.
Yeah.
I guess, as a cyber ninja or whatever you're pretending to be. And that being said, too, it's like the stories are also presented in a very similar fashion, because it's like you're not like Geralt and V both are, they're already who they are. Like, you're kind of driving how their experiences are presented and the choices that you make, but their characters are their characters. Like there is moral choices that you'll make, but they're not like defining who he is as like, oh, I'm this, renegade, I don't know, cyber hacker or whatever that does this. It's like, no, you're still V, but he's, he or she, mind you, whoever you played is still, making decisions based on the way the world is being presented to you in the same way that Geralt did in that game. Like those are still, the storytelling is still very similar. Like the character is the character. And I can understand that like, if you're coming to this thinking it's Skyrim or whatever, but I would even argue in Skyrim, like the stories are way less interesting. And like the way that you're presenting with the stories is like, and especially in like Fallout, it's just like, how many ways can I say yes? Where it's like, at least in each yes that was given here, there was like at least more to a few moments of pause of like, man, do I really want to say that or this or whatever? And at times even that option is taken away for you to even think about it. You're like, really, what is your split second decision here? And then that stuff all culminates later, and it may not seem like the biggest impact, but at the same time, at least it gives you the feeling like the direction is important or whatever. So yeah, now that I've compared the two games, that it's one again being praised wholeheartedly and the other not, and actually, just as a side note, because we're here, there's the same bugs in The Witcher almost consistently. Like there may not be at the same scale and amount, which is fair because this game is definitely way more than any game I've ever seen, and in weird ways that I've never seen in any game. But it's like, I've seen plenty of villagers just like T-posing or standing around, or people walking on ground that doesn't exist, or like, packages floating in the air. Like it's the same engine. The bugs are all there. Like it's not, I don't know. It's just, they're not that different. It's crazy how much they're shitting on one game. And again, it is more egregious here. I get it. Like, and it is to a different caliber, but I guess I will say I'm also only really comparing the PC versions of both of these games, because I haven't played the consoles to any capacity. I've only seen some stuff, and more or less have seen the worst of both of those. So I can't say firsthand what those have been like. So again, I'm only speaking from the PC versions. But again, yes, without a doubt, this game is way farther away from being polished than The Witcher 3 is, without a doubt. It's also, that game has had 6 years to figure that out. So there's that too, I guess.
Well, the thing I would say is that, like, I liked this game a lot. It gave a very good first impression. The storylines are incredible. Some of the best, like, writing in, like, that I've, played in a game recently, like, at least, like, most of the main missions. The sides content is also very good. Like, there's a lot of like really random storylines and those also kind of branch off into other storylines that you don't quite expect. So like the web of storytelling in this game is very vast, very wide. That's great. Awesome. The thing that's disappointing to me is that, like, one, what really took me out of the experience is just trying to experience the game on its own merits, but then just constantly running into things that just like were very jarring and took me out of the experience. It just more so than The Witcher ever did. Like there wasn't moments in story missions in The Witcher where I was like, what in the fuck is happening with this game? Like, why is this character not talking? There were a lot of missteps along the way of this one. Like, the other thing that I would say about like the player agency and like feeling like you have more control over like how your character reacts is that the game kind of almost in a way marketed itself that way. And I'd say like they kind of made a bigger deal about your life paths. They kind of like, they were like, this is your Night City. Like if you go and watch some of those like marketing videos, like they really did make it feel like you would have a lot more say in the world and a lot more say in your character. But when you ultimately compare all three life paths, there's like story beats that change, and like you can answer some questions a little differently, but ultimately they all boil down to leading you down the same pipe. Like that's kind of why I found the life path stuff a little hollow in a way. I think it'll be interesting to go back and play that content, especially considering like CD Projekt Red has had a very substantial track record for their previous games of like The Witcher 2, Assassins of Kings. They went back and made an entirely new prologue for that game. They revamped massive swaths of that game for the enhanced edition, and The Witcher 3, they like completely reworked the movement. Like some of the combat stuff they tweaked significantly since launch. And
and it feels way better than it did. Because I'm playing it now. I kind of turned on and off that option for a little bit, and it feels way better with it on than it ever did.
Exactly. And then the other thing is that like CD Projekt Red with The Witcher 3, there are people that say like the Blood and Wine DLC and like the I forget what the other one's called, but or Heart of Ice or something like that, but
Heart of Stone.
People say that some of the content in those expansions is substantially better than the base game in some cases. So I think that there is room here, and that's what is ultimately disappointing to me, is that just like I feel like if this game had 6 to 8 more months, if they just didn't like do the back and forth, we got to release it, like had they just kept their mouths shut, it like delayed it, didn't say anything, and said here it is, I think they would have had a lot more time. The other thing I would say about that though is that maybe not, because I think now that it's been in like a lot of people's hands, maybe they're taking a lot of the like design choices and criticisms to heart. For example, like the AI of the civilians and like the way police work in the game is like very rudimentary and not very fun.
But again, that's I guess it's the same thing though, is like I think that like a lot of people are comparing it to like every open world game, where I'm like trying to compare it to their other open world game, and it's like the guards in that game do the same shit. They just kind of show up and chase you, which is what the police do here. Like the guards are already in the world, and then they kind of like I'm just saying like they're not that different. Like I'm not saying that
they really
you shouldn't expect more, but it's like based on the engine that they're using from the other game they created, the same shit is kind of in both. Like I guess like it's more noticeable than the other, but it is still objectively kind of the same.
I do think that the marketing did the game a huge disservice, though. I honestly think.
I mean, that's fair, but I don't know. I mean, again, I never went in expecting that stuff out of this game, and I don't know if I maybe just missed the same marketing, but I never thought like.
I mean, if you watch like all the Night City Wire stuff and like all the pre-release footage, and like they're over there saying like this is the most believable open world game we've ever, or like anyone's ever made, like they're out there like making it seem like a very big leap forward innovation, and it looks very good. The game looks very good, but there are fundamental design choices around it that like show their like they kind of show themselves later in the game. Because if you mainline it, like this game's fucking awesome if you just mainline the shit, because you don't run into nearly as many problems later on.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, I guess the thing is like. I guess it depends on what their definition of believable means, right? Because if I were to look at this like the characters and how they interact with you via phone calls, text messages, all that, that is the most believable open world game I've ever been in. Because the way the characters interact with me is how people do in real life. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like I kind of get what they're saying if they're saying that this is the most believable, because yes, that part of this open world is that way. And if I'm just tooling around the city itself, like it does very much seem like an open, like being in downtown Dallas or whatever. Like it seems very similar to that. It's like a bunch of people walking around doing their day-to-day shit. I'm not going to be interacting with any of them anyway. That's real life. Like, and I'm giving them a little bit of benefit of the doubt here for sure, because it is a video game or whatever. But if they are saying most believable, to me it does feel that way. Like, and I'm not just trying to be, a fanboy of their company or whatever, or just defend this game to the end of the earth. But I don't know. It does feel, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it feels very realistic to me, even if it isn't. Even if some of the AI is not acting appropriately, or some of this is, but some people in real life don't fucking act appropriately. We've seen it today at our White House. But no, I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't seem, because that's the other thing too, is like you talk about police stuff and things. It's like, yeah, and I don't know. I guess I won't get into that because there is a little bit of it here too. I was gonna say, like, in Grand Theft Auto, it's like you bump a corner and then all the cops in the city know that you've done something, whereas here that also happens to some extent, but it also kind of makes narrative sense because everyone's sort of on the same network to some degree or whatever. But that's a whole nother argument, I guess.
Yeah, it just, as far as open world design philosophy and games that have, it just feels like this, they were trying their own narrative structure, and that all works very well in this game, but they almost like it feels a little bit of a stubborn game, like, to me, because you look at like Grand Theft Auto, it's like one of the most prolific open world games. Basically every game has like taken things from it and like done their spin on them and like improved upon open worlds. That's why open worlds are so big as a genre now. And I truly think that GTA 3 was like the culmination of that.
Yeah.
I think that was the seed for every open world game going forward. Games have built and improved upon that stuff so dramatically, but this almost has taken no lessons from that, as far as like for me, the two biggest complaints I have about Cyberpunk are the way you interact with the world, the way people react to you, and I'd probably also like mechanically, like I think crafting ultimately.
I'll give you the way people interact with you. I'll give you that one for sure, because there is definitely some scenarios where AI is just not paying attention or whatever. If it's characters outside of the story interactions and stuff, yeah, for sure.
What I'm getting at is like there were things that were pointed out to me that I was like, after I found out about that, it's like, fuck, like they didn't think about that. That's insane. Like, how did they not think about that? Like, big example.
What do you
big
like?
example. So if you're driving and you stop in the middle of the road, GTA characters in like any other open world game that I know of know to like path around you or like honk at you or like fucking react to you in some way. If you like park in the middle of the road in this game, the cars just sit there and wait. Like they don't react to you at all.
Yeah.
And so there's things like that. Like, that's why the game has like a huge asterisk for me, because narratively there's nothing like it. I'm 100% with you on that. Narratively, like, it's one of the best games I've ever played. But
well, and that's what I think I've said continually to people about the game, is like that. To me, that is the next gen portion of this open world. Like, I don't think that, and again, I think ultimately that is the direction and I guess that's again why I compared it to their other open world games so much, is like I think again I could be totally off base, but I think that their version of their next gen open world and their believable open world is their story and how it's told to you, aside from like you getting to go fucking golfing. It's like I get that that's what some people want out of this, and like, I mean, I've seen people even upset that's like, you can't turn on the sinks, and it's like, who gives a shit? Like, are you really going
those
around
minor
to
details?
turn the
I
sinks
don't.
on?
Those I don't care about. And that's not.
Well, that's what I mean.
At,
is like
but
that's where people start complaining and doing all this, and it's like you can't even do that. And it's like, does any of that really matter? Like, are you really that extra immersed that water came out of the faucet? Like, it doesn't. That it's not. I don't know. Maybe that's what you want out of the world. Maybe that's what makes them believe it. But I just don't see that being that crucial. Like, I get, the traffic thing, sure. Like, that's totally fair. Like, I would like them to be a little bit more reactive and all this to you, and whatever. I mean, hell, they get out of the way when you're going towards them, so that's something, which is. Most cars in real life would do, I guess. I don't know if you want them to hit you or whatever in this game to make it more realistic. I don't know. But I guess I don't know. I guess I'm saying I'm able to that none of that stuff bothered my experience with the game at all. Like I some of it I noticed for sure, but the story was, I think, weird enough and compelling enough and interesting enough that none of that stuff hindered me enjoying this game. Like, some of the bugs got in the way at times, but the actual like AI and all that other shit, I just didn't do anything to take me out of going through that experience. And then after the fact, going to clean up all the side stuff and all the encampments and all that, it never was enough to.
Yeah.
And maybe I just got a good version of it. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't experience a lot of that stuff. And, I'm also not one that is going out and just throwing grenades in crowds to see if all the cars blow up and everyone screams. I just don't care. So maybe that's another part of it. I don't know.
It's just that's the minor details are, if they were there, that's great. That's perfect. It's just like, to me, there are things that open world games 10 years ago did better, in my opinion. But I did like the game. I did like the game a lot.
Well, hey, that's why it's on my game of the year list and not on your list. I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved it. I will happily go through it a second time after some patches as well.
That's where I'm
excited to see what the DLC looks like, because the story is set up in a way for almost all of the endings to where the next bit is going to make sense regardless of what you've done. So I'm interested to see how those tie together. So.
Yeah, Pan Am's the best girl too. Best girl.
Pan Am's great. Yeah, they also just recently found there is a male way to get with Judy.
Yeah, that was all like scripted and programmed in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were saying it was basically like she was intended to be that way from the get-go, or intended to be for female V only from the get-go. But it was easier to, if you had all of the voice actors there, get everything recorded in case, and then just get it all together in case you were going to use it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah, that was one of those things where I was like, yeah, I get it.
I also imagine
it wasn't cut. It's just.
Yeah. I also imagine you have like a book and you're like, okay, read line 1514, and then like you name a file in a computer and okay, male, female version of the same file. Keep it more uniform that way. I imagine, but
yeah. So that part was interesting to see. But I think the romance stuff in this game is for people complaining about it. I think it's done probably the most tastefully it's ever been done in a game. Probably the most impactfully that it's ever been done in a game.
I didn't find it gross or weird at any point.
No, because even in Mass Effect, where it was probably the example I would use before this one, was like done relatively well, but it's still like, at a point it was just like, okay, do you want to do sex? And it's like, I guess, like we've hung out long enough. Do you want to do some sex?
Yeah.
Whereas here it was like, yeah, it is very tasteful. But anyway,
it's. I can't wait to play that game in another 6 months. I just can't wait.
Sure, yeah.
I can't wait.
I mean, and that's also what I suggested for most people that are only going to play it once, is still to wait 6
Yeah, your
months.
Steam reviews, like I really liked the Steam review you wrote up, because it does capture a lot of the same feelings I had. Overall, I'd recommend people play it. I just had personal things with it that kept me from truly getting as immersed into it as I wanted to. Sure. I still think it's fantastic, worth playing, but
I honestly didn't expect it to get me the way that it did. And it sparked me wanting to play more narratively driven stuff, because like I said, and as soon as it was done, I was like, well, because I didn't always love the combat in The Witcher and all that stuff, so I was like, let me go back and try this again, because obviously there's something more here than I've seen. And yeah, I fell deep into that and have almost finished it as a result. And then I started playing Final Fantasy, where I couldn't fucking tell you a single character's name in that game, because I have been burning rubber through that.
Dude, the amount of progress you've made so far is fucking insane.
I know how to level in our MMOs. I wish this one was a little more generous about how you did it. Yeah. At least your first time. Apparently every character you make after that gets bonus, like 100% experience from killing everything. after you've gotten your first capped character.
Nice.
Which is good to know, but that's for next week when we only talk about Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, I can't wait because we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I got to air out some grievances about that game here sometime soon because Jesus Christ.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. So I guess we'll talk about mine. My next one. Kind of hard to find a video that would encapsulate all this, so I'm just gonna pull up one of the dev diary kind of videos. RimWorld went into 1.0. This game has been around for fucking ever. Like it's been around, and it's been $20 or $30 forever. And
yeah,
I'm very happy it went 1.0. They also released a DLC called Royal, which adds a pretty good substantial amount of like content as far as like doing like galactic you basically have kingdoms on the planet that you kind of have to like court favor with. And
what was that screen he just pulled up that had like 900,000
icons?
It had like choices on it. What the fuck was all that?
Let's see.
I think it's like a little farther back.
I think he's he's doing this is his dev blog.
A little more forward. Hold up.
Oh yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. That's the debug menu. I think he's.
Okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt for that.
It's good. It's just him showing you features. That's why like it's hard for.
Yeah,
this is like debug menu.
Okay, I was like, oh my god, I could never play this game. If I saw all that, I was no, I'm good.
That is not the core experience.
Sure.
Like I said, it's hard to find a video of like a straight RimWorld like gameplay because this game is like heavily moddable. Everybody has like kind of their own preferred way of playing the game. It is I would say it's like a mix of Dwarf Fortress, any kind of like city building game, like resource management game. But it's one of the most like robust and mechanically like driven and fun games that I've like ever played. I'd say that this is probably in my like top 10 games of all time. Just the amount of like freedom you have to do things and like the narrative that kind of plays out like throughout the game. I'm gonna skip forward a little bit and see if he stops like just spawning things. But this game was made by like one man. One guy made this entire game. And essentially, if you don't know much about RimWorld, you can like build a colony, you build ships, you can take people out on like expeditions to other parts of the world. And then like, you know, raid other villages or like court favor with them and like make friends with other civilizations. There's like trading, bartering, growing crops, production. And one of my favorite aspects of the game is like the humanity behind it and all the social aspects. So every character has like a unique background, a unique trait. They have like health conditions that can affect their moods. So you can have somebody with asthma, or you can have somebody with like psychosis. You can have somebody who's bipolar, somebody who's like fuck ugly, so nobody wants to hang out with them, and it makes them like isolated. And like there's a lot to this game, and it does seem daunting at first. And I would say like, you know, I played a free demo of this game back when it first came out because I didn't want to drop $30 on it, but after playing like a few updates after the original alpha, like I just knew this game was going to go places. And so I don't even know how to recommend it. Like that's the hard part.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because because it really is a unique experience. I mean, people compare it a lot to.
I think if you look at it, like you would know if you're the person that would play this. It's
yes.
like I think like looking at all this, you can go, I think I'm in. Like, because like Dwarf Fortress seems like something I will never experience, but one of my friends, Kevin, just plays that all the time, and like I'm sure he would see this and go, I'm in. And I look at it and go, I know I don't want this, but I don't know.
I don't know if the developer of this game explicitly said Dwarf Fortress is very hard, like has a hard barrier to entry. I want to make like a more user-friendly version of that game, but it is essentially a Dwarf Fortress. The only thing that you don't really have in this game is like Dwarf Fortress does a cool thing where it like generates like lore and history and like historical figures and events and like the world shapes depending on like what's happened in the world. So
that's fucking crazy. But I mean, I
it's
guess
insane.
Aesthetically, that game. Well, I mean, I guess they're about to do a version that has graphics.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, that's. I mean, this game does seem cool. Though, like this seems like something I could learn to love, but it would take me a while before I even booted it the first time, just knowing how daunting it looks.
It is a lot of trial and error. Like when you start playing the game, you will stop and restart the game so many times because you make simple mistakes. Yeah.
It's the same reason I haven't started or picked up Oxygen's Not Included, because I've loved every game Klei has made. But I know that one is one where it's like I'm either going to have to sit with this for like 3 days straight to understand it, or I will just never start it to even want that daunting task.
Yeah.
It looks cool, though, because I do like games like this. It's just hard for me to... We'll see.
It's heavily modded, or it's like got a huge mod community. It has Steam Workshop, so like modding that game is like simple as like clicking a few things. Like there's nothing like it, man, honestly. And like the 1.0 release, like this guy deserves to like take a break. I want to see what this dude does next. Cause like what he built here is an incredible foundation. Like people compare this to like Dwarf Fortress, Kenshi. I would like to see what he can do with like a team of people. Like maybe he takes the fundamentals of like RimWorld and like makes it more graphically appealing or something. But like, yeah, man, like it's kind of funny because one thing I've wanted to do myself, like I never really got into pixel art or modding or anything, but I would love to change all the assets in this game to be like Donkey Kong Country style, like 3D sprites. Like that would be so cool looking.
Are you saying like all the sprites from Donkey Kong, or do you mean
no, like that style
detail of
okay, where it looks 3D but it's actually a 2D image? No, I wouldn't put fucking Donkey Kong in here, Kelly. I wouldn't put Diddy Kong in here, dude. I'd put him on my background, but I wouldn't put him in fucking RimWorld. I know better.
Are you telling me you don't want a colony of kart racing apes to be at your whimsy?
Okay, that's the game of the year when it comes out. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I'm just saying. All right. Okay. All right.
But yeah, I highly recommend RimWorld. That's easily my number 2. One of my favorite games of all time. If you're into management, if you're into like, it's like an ant farm. It's like a virtual fucking ant farm, and I love that shit. So like, whatever.
That's fair. Yeah.
All right, dude. Here we are.
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk about yours first? I don't know. Mine is not going to be very long, to be honest, because it's just basically me praising a thing for a few minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk about mine.
I feel like both of these from both of us will be that exact same description, but I don't know.
It pretty much. Much. We started doing this show back in August, September, something like that. I know it's been like 20 episodes now.
Yeah. Well, that would be one every week. So that's math. So 5 months ago, 5 months worth, I guess.
Something like that. This is Doom Eternal. My favorite game of the year, easily 1,000%. I had way too much fun playing this game. I loved the first one. Like the first game was Doom 2016, one of my favorite shooters of all time, and I think that this like capitalizes on everything that made that game fun, while doing a lot for like the franchise moving forward, making it like this almost stupid like sci-fi comic book story, that like I think sometimes I think they lay it on maybe a little too thick compared to how 2016 was, but it's so goofy and stupid and just like dumb fun that I kind of love it more than that original game. I like how egregiously in your face it is. One thing I'll say, like the UI took me a long time to get used to because it is kind of like colorful and like poppy, and like I don't like the text and like some of the aesthetic choices.
I hate the Doom text. Yeah, I don't care for it.
Some of the aesthetic choices around this game are a little questionable. But
I agree with you there.
I'm glad they went with a direction, because the first one seems like this weird half step of like they wanted to make, like, I don't know if you've seen all that leaked footage of like the original Doom 4, what that was going to look like, but Doom 2016 almost seems like a compromise between this and what that was going to be.
Oh, sure.
But the game still has like those moments where like, the Doomslayer has like a personality outside of just shooting things. Like there's things in cutscenes like he's ripping like keys off of like scientists' or like necks, and like people like freak out around him when he walks into a room because he's just like this cosmic fucking horror that like is just legendary for being a badass.
I mean, it's the same. It's the same plot of Last of Us. Who's really the enemy here?
Who's really? Yeah, I mean,
who's really the demon?
Honestly, the Doom guy's like the world's like first brutal Christian superhero. It's very odd.
Is that what it is?
It pretty much. He's pretty much fighting demons and trying to save heaven.
I pulled
the actual plot. So
yeah, you know what? I did pull up a JPEG of the Doomslayer, and I didn't realize he does have a cross tattoo on his neck and on his chest, and there's a little gold cross on his outfit. I didn't even know.
It's very weird. Very weird.
And this is John 3:16. Wow.
Man,
it's
cool.
Church boy. I didn't know.
I don't know. Like, I started playing Ancient Gods Part 1. I did the first mission of that very recently. I bought it during the Steam sale. It wasn't actually on sale, but I bought it because I had money at the time.
I was about to say, I didn't think it was. I didn't think they would have.
It wasn't, but the base game was, and honestly, if you just get the base game, like, it's worth every penny in my opinion.
I got the fill on the base game. I had no desire to do the DLC stuff, but I'm not as huge of a fan of these games. But the regular game is 100% worth playing. Like, I played through that and I had a great experience, and then didn't need any more or less out of it. Although the multiplayer was fun when we did that a little bit.
Battle mode is fun. It's not like a game changer, and it's definitely an improvement over just like the most generic like first person shooter deathmatch that the first game had.
Sure.
But
yeah, they went for something with this one, I think, which is
exactly.
Nice. I enjoyed it.
And I think that's like something to be said about the entire game, is that they went for something. Like that. Even though I don't exactly like every artistic and creative decision in the game, I still think that they had a vision, they made what they wanted, and I think it pays off. It's some of the most like visceral and intense action in a shooter that I've ever played. To me, there's nothing like the movement, mobility, and just moment to moment action in this game. I fucking adore it, dude. Like, I love the hell out of this game. So
sure. Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's a great game. I mean, I got nothing really bad to say. It's been a while since I played it, so it may be hard for me to even remember if I had any criticisms to begin with.
My only big criticism maybe is that, like, I think they go maybe a little bit too hard on the resource management, like maybe just a bit too hard, because I think what they did,
I think the ammo stuff is like, you sometimes just don't have enough goddamn ammo for how much you're shooting guns. And like, I know that you're supposed to be mitigating. I think it's just there's too many fucking buttons to hit like, for how fast you are going around shooting things. It's like, all right, now which one? Chainsaw does ammo, and then wait, the blast cannon, that I think that does armor, and then this freeze one, that'll give me but then I was just like, and I get what they're going for, but I think you could have maybe taken one of those out and you would have been fine, or like maybe one or two of those and tweaked them a little bit.
Yeah.
Or
I
something
agree with
there.
that.
Because honestly, once you get the grappling hook shotgun, they just need to give you unlimited ammo with that gun, and then you never need another gun.
Dude, and
that's the most fucking fun thing to do.
That's the one like design philosophy of the game that I actually kind of agree with, because like the first game, you really could beat that game with the super shotgun. You almost had no other incentive to use the other weapons. In this game, you at least have like hard counters to certain like armors and certain enemies, like the arachnoids, like the arachnotrons. Like you get the scope, or you get the like the grenade lob from the shotgun, and you destroy the cannon on their back immediately. Like, so I liked. I mean,
eventually I got the flow of it. I think sometimes when it got really hectic, I was like, oh fuck, wait, what is the thing to? Okay, and that does all right.
Yeah.
And especially because I played the first half and then took a break and then came back, and especially then I was like, oh my god, wait a minute, hold on, there's like 900 different things to do here.
Yeah, man.
But it's fun. It's a fucking fun game.
I think it improves on everything the first game did. Yeah, can't recommend it enough.
I definitely liked it better than the first one. I'll say that too.
Yeah, can't recommend that game enough. Doom Eternal's my game of the year. Good shit.
That's cool.
It's
a good game.
Fucking shit. All right. Well.
Yeah.
Drum roll.
Yeah. And your boy's game of the year, which is no surprise to anybody who listens to the podcast, really, because I've said it jokingly a million times, but it's real now. Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 remaster. It is. I mean, you never thought we'd get it, and it's fucking really good. I expected to have another Tony Hawk letdown. We've had several Tony Hawk style letdowns over the course of my life. But this is the year that skateboarding games came back, and we got some really good ones, and this is the top of the racket. I mean, that's why I say I don't have a ton to say about it, because it's fantastic. Like, they did everything that they could do to make this game updated to current, like what you would expect out of a game that just got made, and then kept everything as nostalgically close as you could, and made it feel like how you felt playing those games when you were growing up. Like, they sort of hid all the negative sides of those games and did away with all that stuff and somehow modernized it to where it still feels like how you felt when you played those games as a kid. That's like the best way I can describe it. It's like, it's sort of taking the imagination you had for what you were doing then and really actualizing it. And graphically, it looks great. I mean, it runs super well. I think the challenge achievement system that's in the game is like a super smart way of adding longevity to doing it. They updated it after it came out to add the ability to reset or to do the campaign over again, completing all the challenges with every skateboarder instead of just doing it once and then having all the stages be practically empty when you went back through them. So they added a thing for that. The multiplayer is also set up in a really smart way. Granted, if you're not a boy that can do the 2+ million combos at any given moment, then you might as well skip it. But it is super fun. It's set up in this way where you're always, which Tony Hawk 5 could have taken a huge note out of this book if it would have came out first. But they basically, you're always skating on the level that is going to have the challenge that comes up. But then it basically is just cycling through like graffiti, and the points challenge, high score runs, and all that. And then it'll switch map. You'll just keep skating until the thing starts, and then you just go start off and do it, and then keep skating again. So it's all done in a really, like, you just keep playing the game, and then eventually like a challenge pops up basically, and then you're doing the multiplayer thing, and then so on and so forth. And then people cycle in and out until, you leave or whatever. So that's really well done. The customization stuff is really grand. I think the only thing I wish is that the creative park was like a bit more involved, and I also wish that was cross-platform, because as far as I can tell, the Creative Skater stuff is only per platform, and I think the console versions of this game definitely are the ones making a lot of shit for that. And PC doesn't seem to get to see any of it, because I think it's all, which I don't really know why that part isn't just all one giant hopper, because I don't think there's any limitation that would make one different from the other. And maybe it's something they'll add in later, because the general speculation is that we're going to get Tony Hawk at least 3 as DLC which is what I would think as well, because that would make this package $60 if they charge 20 for that, because it's only $40, which was the other huge highlight of the game, is that it was just $40 and as great as it could be.
Well, also, it's like they've taken a stab at doing like HD re-releases of the previous games, but like they were all
they
trash.
didn't, but
Yeah.
someone did.
Someone did.
Yeah. But this was Vicarious Visions, which they worked on the original Tony Hawk's. They were also the ones responsible for the Spyro the Dragon, Crash Bandicoot remasters, and that stuff. So that was why I was hopeful out of the gate, because those Crash Bandicoot and Spyro remasters are the same thing. It's like they didn't really change much of the gameplay at all, but they tweaked it enough to where it felt more modern, and then just made everything look gorgeous and kind of streamlined the games. And they did the same thing here, and that's why I hope what happens here is that they make Tony Hawk 3. I would love for them to do 4, but that's kind of a different game. But if they don't, I would love this for it to at least get 3, because 3 was kind of the peak. 3 and 4 were kind of the peak for me, but 3 is up there. And then them do their own new Tony Hawk game, which would be fantastic. Because if this is what they're showing they can do, I would love to see what they can do when they have their own set of rules and
For
can
sure.
kind of have some freedom to it.
I think that's
'cause
where
I
it's
think
going to
they're a
go.
good
I
group.
think that's where eventually the series is going to go, is they're just going to kind of...
Honestly, I think that's what happens. I think we get 3 as DLC. I think they make their own game after that, because
Yeah.
it just makes the most sense for them to do that. And then maybe once that does well, they'll go, hey, here's... I would say maybe, depending upon how they would set up their own game, like if they construct a more open world style one similar to like 4 and
Thug
and all those, then maybe we get those as DLC in their game or some edition or something like that.
Yeah, Thug 2 was like the end of the line for me. And I thought Thug 2 had a lot of cool shit going on in that game.
Yeah, I mean, Thug 2 is really good. I mean, that's the one that you can still play on PC if you own a copy of that game. That game is heavily modded, and there's a big community of people that still play that game all the time. But yeah, I mean, I played every single one of them except for 5, just because I could tell I would just be upset.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be upset with Tony Hawk, because it's very nostalgic to me in a lot of different ways for a lot of different reasons. I mean, it was the reason I skateboarded my entire, teens and into adulthood, and still am passionate about it as much as I don't skate anymore. I like to see it and everything. And I think that's all from Tony Hawk. Also, the soundtrack, fantastic. They put Viagra Boys on there, which is some of my favorite music that I would have never expected to be in Tony Hawk, but fits Tony Hawk so well. It's a no-brainer, but good to see that they got some representation in there. And the original soundtrack and just a bunch of added stuff to it. And yeah, just it's a remaster from a group that you can tell was cared about it when they made it originally, and now you care about it even more, that people want to see it again. It can't be understated that they did so much good work with this, and it's just it's a joy to see in a world of re-releases and remasters that don't do jack shit.
Yeah.
It's good that somebody, like, you could tell they loved what they did then and still do. So yeah, I can't stress enough how good that remaster is and how worthwhile it is if you're a fan of any Tony Hawk game whatsoever.
And it feels like a new game.
It's worth
Like
playing.
it had an
It really
air
does.
around it.
It really does. Especially if you only played those games as a kid, you'll definitely remember it. But it so much feels like a game that's current. And also why I'd like to see, because I was never a huge fan of the 2-minute run constriction that those games had. But here I didn't mind it, and I would also, that's why I think I'd like to see them do their own take without that kind of stuff. And just see what they would do with the gloves off, because they're qualified. They get the seal of approval to fuck around with Tony Hawk some more if they want to, and I hope they do.
For sure, man. Yeah.
It's a great game. And I will say the reason it is number 1 for me, outside of the stuff I just said, is it is by far the most actual unabridged fun I had playing a game this year. Like on my own time, like we've definitely had plenty of fun playing multiplayer stuff together and all that. But as a sit down by myself single player game experience, it is the most fun time I've had playing what is a very much a video game, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, there's no other bullshit behind it. It's like you're playing a game it's a game for points. Do this thing, get points, win, have fun, and it excelled at everything about it. So it's just the most fun I've had with a game this year.
It's comfort food.
Yeah, it's not even so much that. It was just like, it was that I don't know. It's like going to a theme park. It was like I spent 8 hours straight playing through this game and 100%ing all the challenges, and I haven't played a ton of it since. But I dip back in every now and again to just kind of play around like I did with Thug Pro. But like, it's like I went to a theme park for a weekend. That was my little vacation, and it was like fantastic. And it was just, it's a great game.
Nice. That's that's game of the year,
that's
boys.
This year in video games.
Tell us all the mistakes we made. Tell us
Sure.
tell us what we didn't play that we should have put in the list. Tell us how wrong we were. We always appreciate that. Next week, I think for our episode, we'll toward the end kind of go over some releases that are coming out next year or this year.
Sure.
Just trying to get ahead of some of that stuff and planning on what we're gonna really be playing and talking about. But overall, a good year. 2021 was a good time for games. Not a good time for a lot of people, but
humanity. But
yeah,
games were doing okay.
It's pretty good.
I will say, I think there's not a whole lot on the docket for the start of the year, but we are starting with a few bangers. I think Hitman 3 comes out on the 12th, and then, or maybe that's wrong. It's sometime very soon, though. Everspace 2 just got announced for the 18th, I think, which is probably the one I will pick up between the two just because I'm going to wait for Hitman to get to Steam. But
Outlanders is having like a free demo. That game actually looks pretty rad. I'm excited to try that one out. Outlander.
Oh.
It might as well. Yeah, might as well be Skylanders.
Outlanders is that like...
it's like a loot shoot. You know, one of those fucking games. It's made by People Can Fly. It's the Bulletstorm guys. So,
right.
Yeah.
I'd like to see them make another game. Bulletstorm was a uniquely weird experience. Well, Rage 2 was sort of Bulletstorm 2 in a lot of ways, but
yeah.
I would like to see them do something else.
Yeah. So that's one I'm looking forward to. And Final Fantasy 14, we got a lot of that to talk about next week.
Brand new video game just came out this year, and they're gonna have a new version of that game this year as well.
Yep.
And I can't. Yeah, I'm excited to. Dude, I don't even know what the fuck the world is called in that game. Can I stress to you how
much of it you've skipped?
I've streamlined through that. Yeah, I
think it's called like Aora or something like that, or like.
Is it Temeria? No, that's.
I think that's
Witcher.
Shit.
Tamriel is Skyrim.
That's Skylanders, and
that's Skylanders. Okay.
Yeah, New York City is Spider-Man.
What
else?
Final Fantasy 14.
It's like Aora or a or something.
Hydaelyn.
Hydaelyn? Okay, well I was totally off. Final
Fantasy 14 takes place in the fictional world of Hydaelyn. Hydaelyn. A planet filled with multiple environments and climates covering 3 large continents. The region in which the game is set is called Ezra or Eorzea.
Eorzea, yeah, Eorzea or something like that. Yeah. Eorzea.
Yeah. Sure. That's some Final Fantasy shit. That's some name. That's some Final Fantasy naming conventions.
One of the many grievances that we might have with that game, but it's so much fun. Oh,
it is really a ton of fun. I can't wait to rip it a new asshole next week, though. I gotta tell you, I have had so. As much as I've loved it, my God, some of that design of that early game, I could tell you why it failed. But I'm excited to talk about it now because it is. I am enjoying it, but holy shit. Yeah, I get it. But yeah, that's video games, guys. We will see y'all in the next one. Thank you all for following with us. Sorry for all the delays and whatnot.
Yeah, we're back on track. We're back in business.
We back.